Hokage give me a face. Bleach. Chapter 1-20. Chapter 1 _ Take Ulquiorra as a younger brother. It was the Achukas who threatened Yizan just now, but now, it is Yizan who threatened them. No, it should be said, threatening Ulquiorra. That Achukas was sure to die. Yizan has not been kind enough to let things that threaten him survive. He and Ulquiorra looked at each other, and suddenly, the wind sounded in his ears, and a light brushed Yizan's left foot and flew away. Yizan glanced sideways, and saw a deep ditch stretching for dozens of meters. It's not dead yet. Yizan easily dodged the figure coming from behind, and threw the unknown Yachukas to the ground with his backhand. You are too weak. When the words fell, Yizan stabbed the branch into the opponent's heart. Achukas died, turned into a spiritual light and dissipated. Yizan pouted in disdain, his eyes turned to Ulquiorra again. Your companion died, do you want to avenge him? You are very strong. Ulquiorra's voice was unusually cold. I will not avenge him. In the virtual circle, if you are not strong enough, you will die. You're not afraid of death. Yizan looked at Ulquiorra and put his hand on his shoulder. He froze for a moment and did not resist. Want power. Want to beat Balagan. 100. Ulquiorra shook his head without a trace, and looked at Yizan in shock with his emerald eyes. You. I got it right. Yizan smiled proudly. Your eyes are empty. Are you still looking for the meaning of your existence? But I know the meaning of my existence. I am going to change the world. I can give it to you strength. Since I am here, I shall be the king of the void. Yizan patted Ulquiorra on the shoulder. Then, I will defeat Balagang. Sorry, you can continue to work hard with my goal in the future. Now, Ulquiorra, let's go to meet Balagan. Quote. I don't want to be anyone's younger brother. Ulquiorra's voice finally got some waves. I will be the strongest in the virtual circle, and you have no choice. Yizan said, and walked forward, not worrying about whether Ulquiorra would follow. The throne is on the left. Ulquiorra silently followed Yizan's pace. Yizan was still somewhat excited in his heart. Ulquiorra, who received the first younger brother in the world of death, represented nothingness. Although it was a bit cold, as long as his strength was strong enough, he would be obedient and obedient. On the other hand, Balagang, I remember that in the original book, Balagang was defeated by Aizen with Jingwashueyu and became his subordinate. Yizan looked at the dry branch in his hand, and the light blue spiritual pressure covered it, which was quite easy to use. 5 times the strength of the captain, no weapons. However, I am the invincible protagonist, the man who carries the power of destiny, and there is no opponent I can't defeat. So, where is Balagang? Yizan looked around. No, nothing. Don't tell me he ran away. This is not the style of the virtual king. There was a terrifying coercion that was so terrifying to Ultimate just now that he might have gone to check it out. Terror to Ultimate. Yizan's eyes flashed a hint of mockery. I like this description. Ulquiorra glanced at Yizan in surprise, lowered his head and said nothing. Since he's not here, let's sit for a while and wait for him. Yizan's eyes fell on the rocky peak not far away, where there was a rock throne. Balagang took his subordinates to the place where the coercion appeared. There was nothing there, and it was so calm that nothing had appeared, but the trace of coercion that remained in the sand made the low-level coercion far away. Open here. Looks like a monster has come. Balagan muttered to himself, Chase. I want to see what it is. Is it the god of death? Perhaps, some powerful virtual was born. Kiba Mi grinned arrogantly. I don't care, I speak with a big fist. Balagang gave him a disdainful look. The reason why I let you live is because you are still useful. Kiba clenched his fists tightly. He couldn't beat Balagang, so he became his subordinate. The virtual circle is such a place to be based on strength. Then, if there is one person who has defeated Balagang, he will not be able to be so high. They followed the spiritual pressure left by Yizan along the way, and finally returned to the throne. Balagang squinted at the figure sitting on the throne with his feet raised, and his fighting spirit rose little by little. Since he defeated the previous Void King and became the strongest in the Void Circle, the rest is emptiness day after day. It had been a long time since he had encountered something so interesting. Human, or a god of death. Just a flash, Balagang appeared in front of Yizan. The tall skeleton cast a shadow on Yizan. Dark night, endless desert, howling wind, and a huge, moving skeleton. Like a scene from a horror movie. Are you Balagang? Yizan held his head in one hand and the dead branch in the other with a calm expression. In the future, the king of the virtual circle will be me. Do you think you can beat me? Balagang saw Ulquiorra standing beside the throne, with a defeated general. Is my little brother. To defeat you, only me is enough. Yizan stood up. The branches carved a deep ditch on the hard rock ground. My spiritual power is not well controlled, you need to be careful. You know, I take every little brother very seriously. Bah! The sound of metal hitting the ground sounded, and the rock peak where the throne was located was smashed to pieces by the axe of Balagang. Ha ha, but that's it. Balagang stared at the collapsed throne, his eyes full of cruelty. Since you dare to come here, you should be prepared to die. The previous experience of kneeling under coercion made him very angry, coupled with Kibami's ridicule, Yizan's provocation. Now Balagang just wants Yizan to die in pain. In fact, he was vulnerable. Balagang pouted boringly and turned to leave, but a sudden uneasiness flashed in his heart. It should be me who said this, right? The branch shone with blue psychic power against Balagang's neck, but that's it. Balagang was shocked. For so many years, he never thought that someone could get close to the point with one move. Before Yizan made a sound, he didn't notice it at all. Chapter 2 Balagang service soft. I was careless just now, you really have 2 strokes. Balagang smiled. Put down the sword, I recognize your strength. It sounded like he was showing weakness. Things went well beyond Yizan's expectations. In order to express his bet, he removed the tip of the branch from Balagang's neck, but kept an eye on it, and he did not relax at all. Sure enough, the next second, Balagang disappeared again. Behind me. Dodged, and saw that the last aperture of the skeleton was getting bigger. Flicker. The collapsed rock turned into powder after the virtual flash, and no matter who the person was, he would definitely die. Looking at the scene, the former king of the virtual circle is really not comparable to those little ones. Yizan touched the dry branches that had begun to crack, and felt that after defeating Balagang, the next step should be to find a weapon, preferably Zanpakuto. Come on, let's give you a taste of death. Balagang swung the scythe in his hand vigorously. Seriously, in Yizan's opinion, Balagang's image is more like a god of death than those gods of death in samurai uniforms. At the moment when Yizan was enthroned, he was enveloped by the black-purple spiritual pressure released by Balagang. This is the power of decay and death. Anything that touches it will rot away, and people are no exception. Yizan didn't even have the slightest thought of fear and panic. He calmly watched his hand wither a little bit, and then return to its original appearance under the influence of the power of fate. It's really a bit interesting. The plain words rang in Balagang's ears. He turned his head in shock and looked at the man who came out of the black fog but was intact. For a while, he was a little overwhelmed. It's impossible. It's fun. What other tricks do you have? I'll accompany you to continue. Balagang can become the king of the virtual circle, and his own strength should not be underestimated. Even if Yizan looked as usual and did not show anything wrong, he was not discouraged, bit Kiba and rushed up. Bah, bah, bah. In midair, Balagang's attack fell without any pause. Yizan cracked them one by one without changing his face, but he also realized that he had some lack of stamina. After all, when he came to this world, his power had already been suppressed. 5 times the spiritual power of the captain, although it is much stronger than Balagang, in the end he still lacks weapons. After a few more rounds of attacks, Yizan began to feel a little tired. He frowned, feeling that he couldn't go on, and if he couldn't surrender Balagang, he could only die. After all, Balagang's character in the original book is very cunning. After being defeated by Aizen, although he considers him the master, he always wants to kill Aizen to replace him. Can't be used by me, then go to hell. Yizan's killing intent suddenly rose, and he no longer just blocked like at the beginning, but started to fight back. The reiatsu covering the dead branches swelled more than 3 times, and finally settled into the shape of a knife. Balagang once again felt the terrifying pressure. The secret channel was not good, and he quickly stepped back. In the next second, the sickle in his hand was cut in half by Yizan. Horrible. That was the only thought of Balagan at that moment. A man who ignored the curse of his own aging, a man with such great power without weapons. For a moment, he really gave birth to the idea that he would die. Is this your true strength? Call out. A blue blade of light passed over his head, and the crown was cut in half. Balagang touched the top of his bare head, only to feel that his eyes were darkened, and he almost fell from the air. If he didn't speak just now, would the light blade cut off his head directly? Of course not. As the words fell, the branches in Yizan's hand turned into powder under the spiritual pressure. Sure enough, it's still a little bit without a weapon in hand. All the ghosts present were commotion. It is already incredible to defeat Balagang in such a crushing manner, but he said that this is not all his strength. My king. Kiba Mi was the first to kneel down, bowing his head as a minister. He doesn't care about loyalty, he only obeys the strong, and as long as he is strong enough, he will follow. However, not all virtuals have such practical thoughts as he is, loyal, and naturally unwilling to let their king fail like this. An Hokage wearing a Sasori mask rushed up, waving a metal chain in his hand. I will never show mercy to ants. Yizan blocked the oncoming chains with a sword composed of spiritual pressure. If you want to die, just come. Yizan knew that his mercy would only make them unable to see his own strength. At this time, it was necessary to kill the chickens to warn the monkeys. He originally wanted to kill Balagang, but he seemed to admit defeat, and he really needed a king of the virtual circle to sit in the virtual circle. If not, the knife just now wouldn't deviate from the direction. Yachukas, who launched the attack, was powerless to resist under the powerful spiritual pressure, and was beheaded by Yizan with a single sword. Snapped. The bone mask fell to the ground, making a loud noise in the silent space. Actually, I don't have much patience with the enemy. Either surrender to me or die. I won't say this again. Yizan picked up the mask on the ground and played with his fingertips, but Reiatsu did not restrain himself in the slightest. Balgown, kneel down. Balagang scrutinized Yizan, evaluating the possibility of escaping and coming back to defeat him later. But he knew that this was not possible in a short period of time. This man is too powerful. With his strength, it is impossible for him to defeat him. His knees softened, and he finally knelt down under Yizan's gaze. You're very sensible, that's good. Yizan looked at the large kneeling emptiness in front of him with satisfaction. I'm impatient, so don't disobey any of my words. Yes, Balagan replied in a low voice. Although Balagang had already expressed his surrender to himself, Zan began to struggle with the issue of weapons. Since he has not become a virtual, then the skill that can be learned is Orbital Ghost Way. Getting a Zanpakuto is also imminent. Yizan climbed onto the rock and sat down with his legs crossed, and began to think about how to get a Zanpakuto and learn Ghost Ways by the way. After thinking about it, there is only one place that has this kind of thing, Jingling Court. Chapter 3_Liuhun Street, District 80. Before that, I am afraid to become a god of death. Of course, it is also possible to rob, but in that case, you will have to be the enemy of the beautiful girls in the corpse soul world. Thinking about it is a bit unbearable. The most important thing is that if you are an enemy of the soul society, you will have to be with these strange ghosts in the future. Simply unbearable. I'm going to the soul realm. Yizan looked down at Shu, who is still showing a gesture of surrender. Ulquiorra sent me there. When I'm not here, you still obey Balagang's orders. The king of the virtual circle on the face. If there is an order, I will convey it in a way that you can all receive. Do not reveal my existence to any god of death. Is your majesty going to rule the Soul Society? Kiba grinned. Old man Yamamoto must be on his way now. We just took over their lair in the past. No, I'm going into the God of Death. At this moment, in the Soul Realm, in the 46th room in the center of Jingling Court, dozens of elders from the major families of Jingling Court filled the ring-shaped conference room, staring at the leader of the team, Yamamoto Shigekuni, standing in the middle. His face looked very bad. Of course, no one's face would be very good after feeling such a powerful coercion. The coercion I felt before. I sent the second team and the 8th team to cooperate to investigate, and no trace of that coercion was found in the soul world. If there is something, either in the human world, or in the virtual circle, Yamamoto said here, his eyes flashed coldly, if it is in the virtual circle, we will send more people to investigate. But in theory, something with such power cannot exist. So, we have to find the source of the incident. But neither the 2nd Division nor the 8th Division could find it. They only found the area of Soul Realm. I want to send more people to search for the human realm and the void realm. Yamamoto was leaning on a cane, and he couldn't find the usual kindness on his face. Yamamoto, if this is a conspiracy, what if Jingling Court sent so many gods of death to take advantage of this opportunity to attack? So, we have to be ready to fight at any time. Once the balance between the Soul Society and the Void Circle is broken by that force, the peace and stability they have worked so hard to maintain for so many years will cease to exist, and the consequences will be disastrous. It turns out that the corpse and soul world is like this. Yizan came out of the virtual cave, and there was a meadow with wild flowers under his feet. The river in the distance was sparkling, and people in Edo-era clothes could be seen washing by the river. Clothing looks a lot better than the black and white dotted circle, doesn't it? Ulquiorra glanced around silently, but did not come out of the void. The god of death senses the fluctuations in space here and will come soon. You better leave quickly. Okay, I see. Yizan waved his hand. I will think of a way when I go back. Don't disturb my plan. Yes. The virtual cave gradually closed, and Yizan kept walking towards the distant city. If Aizen has not reached the virtual circle, then the current timeline should be before the protagonist appears. I don't know how old little sister Rukia is now. Seeing a lot of black sky and endless sand, walking on the grass, Yizan only felt that his mood was much better. It should be like this. Why are you throwing me in that hellish place? Yizan flipped through his skill book, but nothing changed. Gray skills are still gray. But the ability of the face fruit is not displayed on it, so it is still unknown whether it can be used. Yizan felt that he should find someone to try it later. At the same time, some gods of death in the soul world have already received missions and started to go to the world in the virtual circle. No one noticed that there was a fleeting virtual hole in this corner. The first place Yizan arrived was Liuhun Street, which was dilapidated, chaotic, and noisy. At first glance, it was full of straw sheds, and few were intact. There were almost no women on the road, just men with fierce eyes. It seems that he regards himself as a fat sheep. Am I going to kill all the way from the virtual circle to the soul world? But these guys are so weak that I can't even lift my hand. Yizan shook his head, not even interested in picking up a stick as a weapon. This kid looks like he just arrived, we might as well. Why is his clothes so strange? Maybe I just came from this world. I am really unlucky. If you have the time to sympathize with him, it's better to sympathize with yourself. The eyes around Yizan never left, and everyone around him pointed at him, but because he was empty-handed, no one wanted to rob him. Are you finished? I want to ask a few questions after that. Yizan squatted on the side of the road and looked at the big men sitting cross-legged. Where is this place? Boy, you can't talk nonsense here. If you want to say please. Oh, let go, let go. Yizan pinched his wrist, and begged for mercy in pain. The others were also frightened by Yizan's burst of power, and quickly said, this is the 80 district. The worst place in Liuhun Street. It seems that my luck is indeed not very good. Yizan let go of his hand lightly. So, how can I go to Jingling Court? The big man who was caught by Yizan's arm only found out that the bones of his arm had been broken, and he didn't even dare to cry out in pain. He held his broken hand and looked at Yizan in horror. 0.6. Only the gods of death and students can enter Jingling Court, and we have never recruited gods of death in places like us. You have to go to Runlanan. A gray-haired old man sat in front of his house and kowtowed leisurely. Pipe, that's where only the psychic can go. Yizan stood up. How to go? This road goes straight forward. You will reach the 53rd district, and then you will see a very high mountain. Keep walking in that direction, and you will encounter a wall. Where is Jingling Court? The old man lit his pipe and took a deep breath. Be careful when you walk, you'll die if you encounter emptiness. Yizan, who just came out of the virtual circle, said. Ha ha. Chapter 4 Wanna be a god of death. As the old man said, it is indeed easy to encounter emptiness here. Yizan looked at the giant virtual not far away and sighed. The chaos in District 80 has a lot to do with the distance from Jingling Court. He sat here for half an afternoon, and still no death came over. He didn't know, it must have something to do with Jingling Court sending many gods of death to find him. Just when Yizan was in a daze, the virtual one knocked down the surrounding houses, found Yizan on the tree, and leaned towards him with a roar. Oh, it's troublesome now. Yizan frowned and looked at the ugly object that was gradually approaching. Would a normal god of death use spiritual power before entering the Jingling Court? Forget it, no one here sees it anyway. For the time being, let's take it as an extermination for the people. Quote. He simply killed the eyeless Shu. Yizan turned to leave, but stepped on a thick object under his feet. Is a human being still alive? Yizan looked down at the piercing boy, his eyebrows raised high. This is an acquaintance again. 830 10th District, More Wood Sword 8. It's fate. Yizan kicked Kenpachi Zengeki, who was lying on the ground pretending to be dead. If you can still move, just follow me. You are very strong. Zanaki Kenpachi sat up in the dust and pushed away the beams blocking him. I want to defeat you. A person who can't even kill Shu has no right to say that he beat me. Yizan flicked the dust that didn't exist on his body and turned to leave. Where are you going? Zaragi Kenpachi walked behind him, holding a wooden sword that had been broken once. Peaceful courtyard. Are you the god of death? No, I'm the one who is going to become the god of death. Yizan jumped up the treetops in 2s and 3s and shuttled through the dilapidated thatched cottage. Wait for me. Zakagi Kenpachi saw a shadow flashing in front of him, and the person who was walking in front of him just now actually ran to the front, and hurriedly followed. What's your name? You should state your own name before you ask someone else's name. Zaragi Kenpachi scratched his hair and smiled. My name is Zaragi Kenpachi. When not fighting, he is a very simple and honest man. Yizan. When they arrived at District 53, it was already dark. Yizan looked at the surrounding environment that was obviously much better than District 80, and decided to find a place to stay for one night. Anyway, in a place like Liuhun Street, except for the top 10 districts, there are many empty houses in other places. The next day, they continued on their way, and finally saw the city wall that the old man said. It's really quite different from other districts along the way. From time to time, there will be death walking on the street, and it is not a world from the chaotic 80 district. What's so good about this kind of place? You can't even use your hands and feet in a fight. Zaragi leaned his sword heavily on the ground. Jing Lingting won't let us in. If you don't try, how will you know? Yizan continued to walk forward. In the Soul realm, the god of death is a group of people with a lot of wear and tear, especially the 10th, 11th, and 13th divisions in the front line. Therefore, as long as you show your spiritual power, I believe that the door of Jingling Court will be open to you. The question now is how to display the normal Reiatsu. In any case, a person who suddenly ran out of 5 times the captain's Reiatsu and was skilled in manipulation would be suspicious of normal people. Thinking of this, Yizan looked at Kenpachi Zaraki. Go and find out. Me. Zaraki Kenpachi pointed at his nose in disbelief. How do you find out? Just go have a fight. Yizan said with a smile. You don't want to try the gap between yourself and the god of death. When Zaraki Kenpachi heard the fight, the whole person became energized, nodded without hesitation, and carried his wooden sword tied with cloth strips and ran to the god of death not far away. Reaper, let's fight. Zaraki Kenpachi's provocative wooden sword knocked on the ground. If we lose, you will take us to Jingling Garden. Oh, why are we going to Jingling Garden? Go to school. Yes, go to school. Zaraki Kenpachi nodded, holding the sword in both hands and posing, come on. However, the god of death cannot do anything to ordinary people. Although that person was aroused by the provocative actions of Kenpachi Zaki, he still did not act rashly. If you're a man, let go of your hands and babble like a bitch. As soon as these words are said, no man with a little blood can stand it. The god of death drew out the wooden sword from his waist and fought with Zaraki Kenpachi. So weak. Zaraki Kenpachi was disgusted while fighting, and his loud voice quickly attracted a group of onlookers. Are all gods as weak as you are? The Reaper who was pressed and beaten by Zaraki Kenpachi was full of anger and turned to Yuhi, and said sternly, I'm an intern. If it's an official Reaper, if it's the captains, you won't be able to squeeze them with one finger. If you say that, I want to be the official death god. Zengmu 383 Kenpachi stopped and looked at the panting trainee death god with disdain. On the other hand, Yizan watched the play for so long, and finally slowly walked out of the crowd. I heard that if you have spiritual power, you can become a god of death, and we also want to try it. That trainee Grim Reaper had just been defeated by Kenpachi Zakagi, so naturally he couldn't say anything to refuse. Moreover, although this man didn't do anything, his temperament reminded him of the captains of Gote 13. I can take you there, but if you don't have spiritual power, you still can't become a god of death. We know this. Yizan nodded. For the sake of you showing us the way, I will take care of you in the future. The god of death laughed dryly, speechless. House number. Unsurprisingly, they were stopped when they entered. Goalkeeper, these two want to be death gods, let me bring them to test their spiritual power. Not recruiting people now, let them go back and wait for the notice. The goalkeeper waved his hand impatiently. Look, I'll say no. Anyway, I've tried my best, you can find a way. The man shook his head. Jinglingting usually recruits people every few months, you should come back after a while. Chapter 5_ Dude is a little stupid. Sure enough, relying on others is not enough. Yizan shook his head slightly, although he couldn't push hard, but it was enough to make some noise and attract the attention of the captain. Anyway, several well-known characters in Grim Reaper were not added in the usual way. The only ones he has an impression of are Rukia, Hitsugaya Toshiro, and the male lead Ichigo. So, even if the gatekeeper said it so inconsiderately, he was actually trying to fool them away for fear of trouble. I am a man with 5 times the spiritual power of the captain. Isn't it a matter of course that I have privileges? What's more, he is the future captain of the 11th Division. We have a reason to get in. Beat you and let's get in. What? We want to be the god of death, so we have to go to the True Spirit Academy. Yizan patted Kenpachi Zengaki and motioned him to give him the sword. Who knew that this fellow Zaraki Kenpachi was excited when he heard the word hit? Yizan patted him. He thought it was Yizan's intention to let him do it. He held the sword in both hands, roared, and rushed up directly. Yizan silently covered his face. What should I do if I suddenly realize that my little brother is a little too reckless? The goalkeeper was fat, 6 or 7 times the size of Janba, and he didn't care when he saw him rushing up. He blocked his attack with just one palm. Si Danfang has been guarding Betamin until now, never before. Let anyone break in and you think you can beat me with a piece of broken wood. When the words fell, Si Danfang waved his hand, and Kenpachi was thrown out. Yizan. It turns out that people like Kenpachi also have such weak moments. Before he could finish his sigh, Kenpachi got up from the ground and charged up again. This time, he took a different tack. Instead of going head-to-head, he attacked from the side. This move has a little effect. Because of his huge size, Saidanfang is not as flexible and fast as Zengi Kenpachi. The two fought 7 or 8 rounds to defeat him. There is progress. Yizan sighed, applauded slowly, and stopped thinking of doing it himself. After all, he's really not sure about his acting skills. If you can't hold it back and accidentally kill this guy or make him paralyzed, it will be too troublesome. This is just right now. Let Kenpachi practice his hands, and make some noise to attract the attention of the god of death inside. Come again. Bah. Come again. Boom. ... When Zengi Janpachi got up from the ground for the 11th time, Saidanfang finally became impatient. I'll be rude if you make trouble again. Shidanfang glared angrily. Although you are indeed stronger than the average soul, you can't beat me. Go through the door behind me. Give up. Immediately get away from me. Yizan frowned and counted the time. More than an hour has passed since he and Janpa came here. After so long, someone should come out and take care of it, right? Otherwise, another big one. Just when Yizan was thinking hard, a cold girl wearing glasses came out from behind Saidanfang. She doesn't look particularly good-looking. Yuhi's framed glasses cover half of her face, and she wears a standard Black Reaper costume. If it weren't for the serious expression of the dean, she would be the type that would never be seen in a crowd. Saidanfang, I have already informed you that Jingling Court is under martial law. Why are there still souls making trouble here? After speaking, he became more like the director of the teaching department. Even so, Yizan, who hadn't seen a few people since he came to the world of death, still felt, I finally saw the girl, so moved. Reporting to Vice Captain Yahomaru, these two souls want to go to school in Junyang. I told them to go back and wait for the recruitment news, but they refused. No matter how you fight, you can't get away. Yahomaru Lisa's eyes moved to Yizan and Zaraki Kenpachi, and when they met Yizan's eyes, they were suddenly stunned, and then subconsciously avoided Yizan's eyes and looked elsewhere. You must know that although Yizan himself is not handsome enough to cry the ghosts and gods, but he has the blessing of the power of destiny, he will naturally have the aura of the protagonist. What is the protagonist? The protagonist is the one who is seen at a glance in the crowd. What's more, Yizan was also staring at her when Yahomaru Lisa looked over, thinking about it. The eyes can't deceive people the most. She saw Yizan's eyes, and it was a matter of course to dodge. Cough. Lisa Yahomaru coughed to hide, and pushed the frame of the mirror. Since you insist, come try it with me. If you can keep up with the progress of the school, you can stay, otherwise you have to follow the rules. Let them in first and I'll take them to the test. Sure enough, the most caring is the girl. This idiot who guards the door can't be flexible at all, he deserves to be the doorkeeper all the time. As Vice Captain Yahomaru said that, of course I have no opinion. Shidanfang was still a little hesitant, but the above orders martial law, so it's not good to bring people in casually. I'll look after them. If they don't pass, I'll send them out. Hearing Lisa Yahomaru say this, Saidanfang could no longer object, and stepped back half a step to reveal the door behind him. Follow me. Lisa Yahomaru glanced at the two of them, then turned and left, still keeping her hand on Zanpakuto on her waist. This is Zanpakuto, Vice Captain, right? Yizan rolled his eyes and began to get close to her. When will we have one? When I was in Liuhun Street, I saw the gods of death kill Daxu with such a Zanpakuto, so it's amazing. I also want to be a god of death and protect the people of Ryugu Street. Zaraki Kenpachi only saw him kill Shu with his own eyes not long ago, and now hearing this, he almost didn't laugh out loud. Yizan glared at him fiercely, and secretly said, if you dare to interrupt when I'm talking to my sister, I'll beat you to death. It was also because his eyes were too threatening. Kenpachi gave a ha-ha and silently turned his head away. When your spiritual power reaches a certain level, Zanpakuto will naturally appear. Most of the Shinigami who have successfully graduated from Mao can find a Zanpakuto that suits them. Lisa Yahomaru looked at the interaction between Yizan and Zaraki Kenpachi, feeling a little bit funny. What's your name? Chapter 6 Entrance to True Spirit Academy. Report to Vice Captain Yasumaru. My name is Yizan, and his name is Zaragi Kenpachi. Yizan replied with a smile. What is the full name of Vice Captain Yasumaru? Lisa Yahomaru has never met such a familiar person. She looks serious on weekdays, and even the members of the same squad are not very close. I didn't expect to be teased by a man who met for the first time today. Although his question seems to be quite normal, but he is the vice captain, so he knows what his surname is. My full name is Yahomaru Lisa. You are just like Saidanfang, just call me the vice captain of Yahomaru. It's just that her appearance of rejecting people thousands of miles away actually aroused Yizan's interest even more. An inhuman vice captain. If she were to fall in love with him, I wonder if she could maintain such a cold look. Let's wait and see. The corners of Yizan's mouth evoked a playful smile, looking at Lisa Yahomaru with determination to win. Yahomaru Lisa was stared at by Yizan all the way, and she was embarrassed for a long time, and she was relieved to see the number 257 of the True Spiritual Art Academy written on it. Here, this is Mao. It's strange, even when old man Yamamoto is staring at her, she doesn't feel in such a hurry. Yahomaru Lisa frowned slightly as she looked at Yizan's profile looking at the campus. At this time, Yizan really didn't have time to stare at Lisa Yazumaru. He came from the 80th district of Liuhun Street, and the buildings and characters he saw along the way were of ancient style, thatched houses, wooden houses, and kimonos. Even the jingling court is mostly 1- or 2-story brick buildings. Getting used to this setting, such a modern-looking building suddenly appeared in front of him. Yizan felt that he needed to be quiet. This inconsistency is so strange. Zaraki Kenpachi didn't have such troubles like him, he just nodded while looking at it. It turns out that the principal of Shinigami looks good like this. It was class time now, and there were no people around the school, so Lisa Yahomaru took them directly to the teacher's office. Pushing open the door, Renchi who was inside turned his head back. Of course, there were only 3 people. Who are these 2 people? They said they wanted to become a god of death, and they were making noise outside the white road gate and refused to leave, so I'll take them to see it. Lisa Yahomaru sat down on the empty chair. Anyway, the team has always confirmed that the spiritual power is enough to stay. What does it mean to stay with the spiritual power? Am I the kind of person who makes do? Do you know that Reiatsu is released to scare you to death? It's just that the person who said this is a woman, and I can only bear it now. After all, his purpose is to sneak into Mao in a low-key manner, get Zanpakuto, and learn ghost ways. Unify the corpse and soul world. Speaking of which, will the test measure the spiritual value? If you accidentally find out that you are 5 times the spiritual power of the captain, then you will have a lot of fun. However, if the spiritual pressure can measure the specific value, then the challenge system in the 13th division does not need to exist. To sum up, as long as the Reiatsu is well controlled, this secret should not be discovered. But for the sake of safety, Yizan still let Kenpachi take the test first. The truth is just as he guessed, the so-called test is just to let them release the spiritual pressure, and those teachers will evaluate it. Yizan only released 1/8 of the spiritual pressure, and let those teachers call them geniuses. Even Lisa Yazumaru, who had always maintained a cold expression, stood up in shock. Although 1/8 of Yizan's spiritual pressure did not surpass the captain's spiritual pressure, it was not far behind. To put it bluntly, the Reiatsu that he released has surpassed most official death gods, and is almost the same as some vice captains. Genius, this is definitely a genius. A teacher stood up excitedly and kept rubbing his hands together. I didn't expect that in my lifetime I would see another person born with a powerful Reiki. Or from Liuhun Street. This Reiatsu is on par with Kuchiki Byakuya, isn't it? Kuchiki Byakuya. Yizan frowned when he heard the familiar name. You fill in this information. A form was handed to him, interrupting Yizan's thoughts. There was a lot of empty space on it, and Yizan finally filled in his name and place of origin, the 80 district. Anyway, most of the people in Liuhun Street have forgotten their origins and have no family, so it is not abrupt at all. It wasn't until after completing the admission procedures and leaving the faculty room that Yizan started to continue the idea just now. When the Death God started, Kuchiki Byakuya was already the captain of the 6th division. If he only has such strength now, and he is still mentioned by the teacher. This means that he has not graduated from Shino, or has just graduated into the 6th division. Then, he hasn't met Hyjin, and he hasn't adopted Rukia. If so, when will he be able to meet Inoue Oriheim? Thinking of this, Yizan couldn't help sighing. Why are you sighing? Zaraki Kenpachi looked at Yizan suspiciously. At this time, they were already preparing to pick up school uniforms and props for class. Among them was the bamboo sword used by Shirai, so Kenpachi Zengaki was very excited and did not understand why Yizan sighed. People like you who only know how to fight, of course you don't understand me. Yizan glanced at the wooden sword that he was still carrying on his back like a treasure. The sword was broken again just now, and now it has become 3 pieces. It's all broken like this, why don't you throw it away? Wait until you get a new one. Zaragi Kenpachi cherished and touched the wooden sword on his back. I don't have a weapon, what should I do when I meet someone on the road and want to fight? For such a dead brain, Yizan could only express that he gave up. The next day, they started the formal class. As the only transfer students from Liuhun Street, they attracted the attention of their classmates as soon as they appeared. After class, the whispers surrounding the two of them began. Provocation, of course, is also essential. Yizan was already prepared, so he was not surprised when a group of people blocked their way. However, what should be said still has to be said, otherwise it will be too uncooperative. Chapter 7 _ There are always provocative dogs. Yizan looked up at the people in front of him, his tone was flat. Why? I heard that you were untouchables from Liuhun Street. There really is such a brainless provocation everywhere. Yizan sighed in his heart. So, are you trying to fight me? The leader was visibly stunned. Maybe, he was used to bullying people in Liuhun Street, and he had never encountered resistance. Yizan glanced around and already had the answer in his heart. Fighting is prohibited in the school, it is really a pariah, and there is nothing else in his mind but fighting. Having said that, the man glanced at Kenpachi Zakagi, perhaps frightened by his vicious appearance. He quickly moved away. He glanced. It is said that the people in Liuhun Street are savage, and it really is true. Although Yizan was just passing by Liuhun Street, he knew very well that the purpose of these guys in front of him was just to demean himself. He felt that being born in Jingling Court was something to be proud of. Yizan's eyes flashed with sternness, but he still kept a decent smile on his face. No way, so many female classmates came and went in the corridor watching. I'm just asking you out of politeness. If you continue to provoke me with the word untouchable, I don't mind teaching you to be a human being instead of your parents. The man was obviously frightened by the coldness revealed in Yizan's eyes, and he couldn't help but take a small step back. You wait, we will have a showdown when the class is in vain. I'm just afraid that you won't be able to pass the 3 moves under my hands, and it's too embarrassing to lose. Yizan shook his head slightly. However, since you insist, I'll accept your challenge with reluctance. Wait for me. The man's face was full of anger. Yuhi, if you lose, you have to kneel to me and be my slave. This is your punishment for insulting the nobles. Then what if you lose? Yizan was not angry at all. After all, if this guy met him, he would definitely lose. Now he only cares about how to get more benefits, such as showing his grand mind. Hidden, low-key, generous, friendly to classmates. Just now, he decided to build himself in the direction of a male god. If you lose, you can't bully your classmates from Liuhun Street, you can't call us pariahs, and you have to apologize for what you said. How about that? Before the man could answer, Cheers were heard all around. In this school that cultivates the god of death, there are only a few people from Liuhun Street. Although these few people are very spiritual beings, they have no foundation after all. They are bullied by the second generation born and raised in Jingling Court and dare not fight back. Everyone's family members are in the 13th episode of The Guardian, and they will be their own bosses after graduation. What good fruit can a child who offends his boss get to eat? Everyone understands the truth, but they must be dissatisfied with being bullied and excluded for a long time. Now, someone from Liuhun Street stood up and refuted the words of an aristocrat. How could this not make them excited? Of course, many of the people who cheered Yizan were born in Jinglingting. They themselves are not used to this tradition of bullying Liuhun Street classmates, but they are not willing to go against the ideas of most people, so this kind of incompatibility has never been shown. Now hearing Yizan's powerful words, he couldn't help but start applauding. The person who took the lead was a little jealous of Yizan, and it was even more impossible to do anything in such an atmosphere. Yizan listened to the applause of the classmates in his ears, and the corner of his mouth twitched, knowing that he had successfully won the favor of most of the classmates, and he was one step closer to success. As long as you defeat that guy in the white fight class, people from Liuhun Street will spontaneously get close to him in the future. Everyone, I don't know the name of the classmate just now. It's the first day of school today. I don't know what made the classmate unhappy. There's no reason to be unhappy. His name is Matsuo Ran, his family is considered a small nobleman, and it's nothing in front of a real nobleman, he just likes to bully people from Liuhun Street with his so-called noble status. And he chooses to be bullied. The one who transferred with you is not easy to be provoked at first sight, so he doesn't dare to provoke. A short-haired girl pursed her lips at Zengmu Janba. My name is Beishin Ryoko, I come from the 18th district of Liuhun Street. Quote. Of course Yizan wasn't really curious about the reason why he was provoking him, he just wanted to find a reason to talk to the classmates present. After all, they are still standing here, indicating that they are in the same position as themselves to a certain extent, and they still have a good impression of themselves. How can you not escape at this time? I just didn't expect that as soon as I opened my mouth, a girl would come to talk. And she looked very cute. My name is Yizan, and like Janba, I come from the 80th district of Liuhun Street. As soon as the words fell, the people around them exclaimed for a while. You can't tell that it came from the 80th district at all. Baiti and Ryoko looked at Yizan in surprise. Zaraki Kenpachi, I believe it, you. She shook her head, it doesn't look like it. Is this an affirmation or denial? Yizan looked back at the ferocious Janba, and took this as his affirmation for now. If it wasn't like this, how could I easily take up that kind of challenge? Yizan smiled slightly, stunning a group of girls around him. That Matsuo Ran was in the same class as them, so naturally he encountered many times, but because of the unsuccessful provocation before, he did not come to Yizan anymore. In this regard, Baiti and Ryoko said, he is just waiting to make you embarrassed when he is playing for free. He is really good at playing for free. Don't tell me you don't have confidence in me. Yizan raised his eyebrows and looked at Ryoko Beishin. If I'm so weak, how can I become Kenpachi's eldest brother? You say so, Kenpachi. Brother Yi is indeed very powerful. I can easily defeat that kind of guy. Zanaki Kenpachi nodded. However, isn't it that there are many powerful people here? Why didn't I see it? We're in the first grade now. The great guys are in the 13th division. Of course, that's for you. Yizan silently added in his heart. Chapter 8 completely crushed. If it's really boring, you can find someone to fight during your free class. After you become a god of death, you will still have a challenge. You have more chances to fight, so don't worry. Yizan patted Kenpachi Zengmu soothingly. Shoulders. In the white play class the next afternoon, after a simple warm-up action, the teacher in charge of this class explained a new set of knife techniques, and then announced that they would practice on their own. Immediately, Matsuo Ran brought his followers around, with a proud smile on his face. I thought you said that kind of big things, and I wouldn't dare to come today, but I didn't expect you to come anyway. Matsuo Ran held a bamboo knife in one hand, and the back of the knife struck with the other hand. The whole person's posture was very arrogant. Lose if so, don't cry. One of the ways to show cowardice is to talk too much. With that said, Yizan weighed the weightless bamboo knife in his hand, feeling that it was not particularly strong. His only worry now is that if he can't control his strength and discount this low-quality bamboo knife, should he be compensated? He was empty-handed and had no money to pay to the school. Matsuo Ran gnashed Kiba's teeth in anger at his unconcerned appearance. I just kindly remind you, if you must say so, then let's start now. I didn't say I wouldn't fight you. Yizan glanced at him lightly, holding the knife in one hand, turning his wrist. The bamboo knife made a loud sound in the air. The tip of the knife pointed directly at Matsuo Ran's door. Just your reaction speed. Yizan let out a sigh. I'll just reluctantly play with you. Matsuo Ran was first annoyed by Yizan's attitude of ignoring him at all, and then he was slapped with a bamboo knife in the face like a slap in the face. Rao was originally only very strong, and now he vowed to use 12 points. But does it make any difference to Yizan? Of course not. It was only a moment when the blade was crossed, and he felt the power from the bamboo sword. Before he could understand what was going on, the bamboo sword had already rotated and flew out. Bah! The sound of the bamboo sword falling to the ground sounded, and Matsuo Ran still maintained the posture of holding the sword, stiff in place. I can't beat you even with a single move, and as expected, I look down on you too much. Yizan said in Matsuo Ran's ear in a voice that only two people could hear. The words were over. He took back the bamboo sword and took 2 steps back. Since the outcome has been decided, shouldn't Matsuo-san apologize to us? Yizan didn't say, I, but, we, and without a trace, he brought himself closer to the people from Liuhun Street, and expressed through actions and words that he was standing with the people from Luxing Street. Matsuo Ran is still immersed in the unbelief that he lost in an instant. You must know that even if he fights his brother who has become a god of death at home, he can still support dozens of rounds. You can't beat me. If you lose, you lose. Yizan narrowed his eyes. You don't want to apologize. In Matsuo Ran's eyes, Yizan at this time was very terrifying, and he couldn't say what he wanted to say that Yizan was cheating. People with such terrifying eyes can't be provoked by themselves. Moreover, the power to let the bamboo knife let go with a single blow. He was very sure that Yizan didn't use skill. He really had that kind of power. If he didn't let go, his wrist would be broken. Where is this person? It is a monster at all. I apologize. I'm sorry. I won't speak ill of Liuhun Street again. Yizan nodded with satisfaction. In this case, we are still good classmates. Yizan is amazing. Yeah, one move knocked Matsuo Ran's sword out. This shows that the strength gap between them is very large. It's just that Matsuo Ran's brother is a god of death, will he? Yizan is different from us. He is so powerful, there is nothing to worry about. ... There were countless voices all around, all praising Yizan. Matsuo Ran felt that these voices were like slaps, hitting him in the face one after another, making him feel ashamed. But at this moment, no one cares about his thoughts. Everyone looked at Yizan, and even the teacher cast an admiring look at him. Brother, I also want to fight with you. Zanmu Janpachi leaned over to Yizan. Seeing you fight, my hands are itchy too. Yizan thought for a while and nodded in agreement. Anyway, playing for free is to find someone to practice. For him, it doesn't make any difference who he plays with. Since the younger brother wants to guide him in 2 moves, then practice it. With the idea of practicing with his younger brother and enhancing brotherhood, Yizan did not show overwhelming strength as he did against Matsuo Ran just now, but made appropriate adjustments to match the strength of Kenpachi, and kept the 2 people who could come and go. Degree of sparring. In fact, this is nothing. The problem is that after the sparring between him and Kenpachi Zaraki, other students also gathered around him one by one and asked him to teach the swordsmanship. It was said to be guidance, but in fact it was practice. As a result, unknowingly, Yizan practiced all afternoon. After class, Yizan angrily threw the bamboo sword to Kenpachi's Aragi, and rubbed his shoulders with a bitter face. He thought at first that sparring should be a very easy job, but now he realizes that he was wrong. Fighting against these classmates is simply more tiring than killing Daxu. Originally, killing Daxu without restraint, one by one, just like cutting a radish, more straightforward. Sparring has to control the power. Being a god is not easy. You want to ask Yizan what he has learned from this class of 1.2, you can use 2 words, restraint. He has been reciting these 2 words silently throughout the class. Yizan sighed, and when he looked up, he saw another man, Kuchiki Byakuya. At this time, Kuchiki Byakuya is very different from the future. There is no star hoop with the Kuchiki family logo, and his personality has not evolved to the level of a divorced and indifferent man. But the pride in his bones really can't be changed. He glanced at Yizan lightly, and continued to walk forward without stopping. Byakuya Kuchiki. Yizan read his name playfully and found the next little brother's target. If he can get the support of Kuchiki, one of the 4 nobles, wouldn't he be one step closer to his goal? Chapter 9_Unexpected Attention. Byakuya in this period is different from before the plot begins. Although he usually looks aloof and cold, he is actually a lively middle school boy, and he and Sifenjin, the heir of the 4 aristocratic family, Sifenjin. The knight is very familiar. Is he Kuchiki Byakuya? Zaragi Kenpachi stared at Kuchiki Byakuya's back with his eyes full of fighting enthusiasm. People who are comparable to Big Brother should also be very powerful. It's really not weak. But that was a long time ago, and now he doesn't even have Zanpakuto. How can he be called powerful? Yizan felt lost when he thought of this. Zanpakuto, Zanpakuto. I haven't found my Zanpakuto yet. Where is this thing? So many Zakat lessons. Yizan finally understood the principle of Zanpakuto, the external manifestation of the inner power of death. In other words, it is the power that is condensed with spiritual power. So here comes the problem. When Yizan defeated Balagang in the virtual circle, he used 30 branches covered with spiritual power as a weapon. Later, because the spiritual pressure was too strong, the branches were crushed. What he used was the condensed spiritual power. Knife. But that's nothing like a real, metallic Zanpakuto. Could it be that because I am not an indigenous soul, the rules of this world exclude me and have not prepared a knife for me? Of course this is not possible. I am the man chosen by fate. Although he encountered resistance on the issue of Zanpakuto, Yizan seemed to be on the hook when he was learning ghost ways. Onigiri and ninjutsu are roughly the same, both are hand seal, chant. The test is spiritual power and the control of spiritual power. Yizan's spiritual power value is 5 times that of the captain's level, and he has hardly encountered the problem of insufficient spiritual power when practicing ghost Taoism. The only thing lacking is proficiency. After he successfully performed 3 ghost ways in a row, the teacher who taught the class was also shocked. There is also a premise here, that is, generally speaking, ordinary students can only learn 2 or 3 ghost ways in one semester. Yizan's reputation as a genius spread like wildfire, and he became a representative of the students from Liuhun Street. But this is only for ordinary students. For those noble children whose fathers are employed in the 13th Division, people like Yizan are extremely dazzling existences. Because of him, they felt the pressure. If this can be said to be brute force, or the strength he has cultivated in the fight in the 80th district of Liuhun Street, then the talent he shows in the ghost path that is absolutely impossible to contact is the real difficulty. Except, they have been preparing for death since they were young. Before going to school, they had already started to learn ghost ways, shunpo, and Baita training every day. They have always been the existence of crushing the students of Liuhun Street, but now, they lost to Yizan in both the Ghost Road and the White Fight. Although only Matsuo Ran and Yizan have fought against each other so far, Matsuo Ran's white fighting strength is among the best in the entire first grade. However, Yizan defeated him with just one move, and there was no room for him to fight back. For a time, all the nobles turned their attention to Kuchiki Byakuya, another genius of Mao. 8th Division Captain's Office. Senior Jingle, that Yizan, have you heard of it? Urahara Kazuki looked at Jingle Chunshui with a smile. The exploration in his eyes was not concealed at all. Some time ago, Lisa said that she picked up 2 strange boys at Baidaemin. What happened? Jingle Chunshui looked at Kazuki Urahara suspiciously. This guy goes to the 3 Treasures Hall without incident, and now he suddenly appeared. There must be some purpose. Of course not. Urahara Kazuki shook his head. It's just one of these 2 people, who has been in the limelight recently. I said, you really haven't heard of it. Jingle Chunshui leaned in to show him his face that had aged a little because of long overtime work. For the sudden and powerful pressure, our 8th Division has been working overtime for a month. If you are so free, why don't you share it? Isn't it a matter of your Technology Development Bureau to test Lingbo? That. Urahara Kazuki couldn't sit still. We were also testing, but that coercion only appeared for a moment and disappeared without a trace. So, you have time to run over when we're dead busy and talk about these totally irrelevant things. I think it's been so long, and the virtual circle and the human world have also been explored. I think we can never find the source of that coercion. Urahara Kazuki continued with Jingle Chunshui's contemptuous eyes. Like in this way, we might as well discuss that Yizan. His talent in ghost ways really makes me very curious. He's in Junyang, why don't you ask him yourself? Jingle Chunshui pulled the stack of documents to be processed on the table. I'm really busy. I know you're busy, so let Lisa go with me. Jingle Chun replied without raising his head. Lisa is also very busy. You're not being loyal enough. Jingle Chunshui sneered. Then you, the Technology 580 Development Bureau, send some people out to help us. Redeemed, Yahomaru Liza at the cost of 10 hands. I'm not familiar with them either. Lisa Yahomaru pushed the frame of her glasses, and she felt a little uneasy at the thought of seeing that person again. You are their leader, of course it's different. Urahara Kazuki walked forward with his hands behind his back. What do you think of them? That is, what do you think of these 2 people at first sight? Intuition. Liza Yahomaru nodded understandingly. The one who looks fierce has a strong will to fight, and the other one looks calmer, and feels a little bit bad. Not so good. Urahara Kazuki's eyes flashed. Can you describe it? He looked at me strangely, and he actually asked my name. Lisa Yazumaru covered her face with her hands. He clearly heard that Saidanfang called me Vice Captain Yazumaru, and he asked what my name was. Are you saying he's weird? It's so weird. Maybe people are just curious about your name. Urahara Kazuki interrupted her helplessly. Chapter 10_guest. Liza Yahomaru opened her mouth to refute, but she couldn't say anything. Just because her thoughts were denied, she felt a little bit of loss in her heart. She sighed softly. That's it. Just like what Urahara Kazuki said, this is a very common sentence, but it is just to ask yourself what it is called. Because it happened to be lunch break when they arrived at Mao, they went directly to the dormitory to find someone, but only found Kenpachi Zaraki who was sleeping soundly on the bed. It was only after I asked that I found out that Yizan had gone to the library. I can't tell, this is actually a child who loves to read. Urahara Kazuki sighed in surprise. At the same time, Yizan in the library was not just reading a book as he imagined. He was surrounded by praise from female classmates. Look over there, it's Lord Yizan. That's him, the one who is as famous as Byakuya-sama. No wonder he is so powerful, you look at how serious he looks when he reads. Yizan, who was immersed in the praise of the girls, smiled slightly and turned the page indifferently. Great or not, Yizan smiled and closed the book. Does this have anything to do with reading? He just enjoys the attention and compliments from girls. Because he showed by Da's invincibility and ghostly talent, no one came to provoke him now. Invincible days, really lonely as snow. I don't know how long it took. The whispers in my ears finally gradually subsided, leaving only the adoring eyes that swept over from time to time. Yizan turned over the last page of the book, got up and put the book in his hand back on the shelf. Yizan, someone is looking for it. The little girl who managed the library suddenly came in from outside the door and shouted. It was said to be shouting, but the sound was not very loud, but it was just enough to be heard clearly. Who will find you? Sword 8. Hakuda Ryoko. It's impossible for Kenpachi to come to the library. If Ryoko Hayakuda would come indirectly. Yizan took his hand back from the bookshelf and nodded to the library girl. No matter who it is, you have to watch it to find out. If it's a provocation, that's even better. It just so happens that he is bored now, so he should have some fun. But to his surprise, there were no provocateurs at the entrance of the library, only 2 gods of death. One is Lisa Yahomaru, who he is very interested in, and the other is wearing a regular captain's white coat and yellow hair. Yizan has no impression at all. It may be the cannon fodder that was harmonized before the main plot appeared. Either I was killed by Aizen, or I was killed by Shu. Anyway, it was a tragic way to die. If he is good and willing to be my little brother, I don't mind trying to change his fate. With a playful smile on Yizan's face, he called out lightly, Senior. No way, the world of the god of death is such a place with rules. However, when he gets Zanpakuto out, he will go straight to the captain level challenge. After becoming the captain, it is only time for others to use their honorific titles. Although he can beat these captains now, but that would be boring, wouldn't it? After Yizan came out of the library, Urahara Kazuki was looking at him. He is not particularly tall, but not short either. He looks a little thin, but it is still within the normal range. It's just this look. Why is it a little weird? Seeing Yizan's pitiful eyes, he quickly began to introduce himself. I'm the captain of the 12th Division, Urahara Kazuki. Because I was curious about you, I asked Lisa Yazumaru to bring me here. Urahara Kazuki, the 12th Division, the Technology Development Bureau. What is he doing with me? Did you find something? Yizan reflected on his recent performance, except that he was a little more powerful in the ghost way. There was nothing particularly outstanding. Yizan frowned in dissatisfaction as he secretly went around in circles with others, and the initiative was still in the hands of others. I heard that the 12th Division is the Technology Development Bureau. According to the world, it is the Research Institute, right? Urahara Kazuki nodded in surprise. Yes, except that sometimes we also participate in battles, the rest is pretty much the same. A dark light flashed in Yizan's eyes, and he said with a hint of fear in his tone, So, you came to me because you want to treat me as a research object. If Urahara Kazuki dared to answer in the affirmative, Yizan would find an opportunity to kill him even if he couldn't do it now. If not, then Yizan doesn't care to continue playing with him. Of course not. Urahara Kazuki shook his head quickly and glanced at Liza Yahomaru unconsciously. The 12th Division has always been feared by other divisions, and now even a student of Junyang is asking this kind of question. He actually saw it in Lisa's eyes. Agree. Doing research is really a long way to go. I don't know why you have such a misunderstanding, but the 12th Division exists to detect the spiritual pressure of all walks of life, and usually only researches some small inventions, such as the righteous Mukuro, which will be used when the god of death goes to the world to perform tasks. When speaking of only, Urahara Kazuki increased his tone. After I finished speaking, I realized that I didn't really need to explain so much. I was just a student. He smiled awkwardly and looked at Yizan. Since you mentioned the Research Institute, do you still have some impression of the world? It's a little bit more. Yizan nodded. Anyway, after the soul came to the corpse soul world, the memory would gradually dissipate, so what he wanted to say all depended on his mood. If he didn't come back, just say forget it. At this time, the bell rang for the end of the lunch break, and Yizan turned to leave when he heard Urahara Kazuki say, "Let's find a place to sit. This afternoon is a history class, not an important one. I've already asked for a leave for you." Urahara Kazuki smiled lightly, but Yizan heard what he meant by his ambition. "That's all, it's not impossible to skip a class in a fair manner." "Let's go," Yizan said, looking at Lisa Yazumaru who had been standing beside him without speaking. "Vice Captain Yazumaru, long time no see." Chapter 11_Flirting. Hey, well, yes, long time no see. Riza Yahomaru didn't expect that she would be suddenly called, so she was so nervous that she got stuck on a sentence several times. Yizan heard the nervousness in her words, and his heart moved. Wouldn't she be interested in me too? Yizan thought that they would find a place where no one else would sit in Jingling Court, but he did not expect Kazuki Urahara to take them out of Jingling Court. After half an hour. Run Linen. Inside the pub. "I heard that you, like Kenpachi, came from the 80 district." Urahara Kazuki sat cross-legged on the tatami. "Do you want strength, or do you want to protect those who have no spiritual power?" "I think there should be no conflict between the two." "It makes sense." Urahara Kazuki nodded. "Actually, I came to see you, just wondering why you were progressing so fast in the study of ghosts." Seeing that Yizan didn't answer right away, he said, "Of course, I know that geniuses are different from ordinary people, but if you have any tips for learning methods, maybe you can tell me. In this way, I can also study it," saying that 880 may not be able to find out how to exorcise ghosts. Quote, "If you are the strongest in the universe, you will learn Ghost Realm very quickly." Yizan complained silently in his heart. Knowing Urahara Kazuki's purpose, his expression softened and he said, "I don't know what else to do except practice more." In short, as long as the movement of spiritual power and singing can maintain a balance, the ghost way in the textbook is not enough. What difficulty? This is the difference between geniuses and ordinary people. Urahara Kazuki sighed in his heart. The spiritual pressure is outstanding, and he is also extremely talented in white fights and ghost ways. This guy should not be underestimated in the future. Yizan, do you have any idea of skipping grades? Skip, of course. Yizan shouted silently in his heart, but he still maintained a flat expression on his face. Can Mao skip grades? Of course you can. Urahara Kazuki nodded. After all, there is a shortage of talents in the Shinigami team. If you can pass all the courses, there is no problem with skipping grades. Oh, Yizan continued to nod his head calmly. It's tiring talking to this kid. Urahara Kazuki picked up a kushimaru and chewed it. So, do you want to skip a grade? Yes, why not? Urahara Kazuki nodded. Then he heard Yizan say, I want to go to the 5th grade. PFF, Urahara Kazuki just drank a sip of sake and spit it out. Aren't you exaggerating a bit? What? I mean, you jumped so many levels at once, can you keep up with the progress? After speaking, Urahara Kazuki knew that he had said this in vain. Because with Yizan's strength, he can indeed catch up with the progress. Just pass the exam. Okay, you are amazing. Kazuki Urahara gave him a thumbs up. After so many years, I have never jumped so fast. You can make history. I never mind trying. Yizan raised his glass to him and silently added in his heart, to change history and change destiny, this is the purpose and value of my coming to this world. Of course, there are girls. You are my driving force. Miss Lisa, if I pass the exam, can I have the honor to invite you out to dinner? Yizan looked at Lisa Yahomaru. If there is a reward, I think I will be more motivated. Lisa Yahomaru looked at Kazuki Urahara awkwardly, before shaking her head with a sullen face, no way. Urahara Kazuki looked at Liza Yahomaru in surprise, Miss Liza's face is Yuhi. Lisa Yahomaru threw Zanpakuto on the table in exasperation and held it down with one hand, Captain Urahara. Okay, I said the wrong thing. Urahara Kazuki hurriedly made a gesture of begging for mercy, and took the opportunity to wink at Yizan, Miss Lisa is happy. Of course, if I am not here, the eyesore is not here. Maybe Miss Lisa will have a different idea. Yizan was also amused by Urahara Kazuki's cuddling, since the captain knows. Okay, I'm also very busy. You know, I paid 10 people as a price to save Miss Lisa from that guy in Kyoraku Chunsui. Urahara Kazuki pointedly said, but now it seems that the price is worth it. It's just that I suffer. After speaking, without waiting for the two of them to respond, he got up and left. You don't listen to his nonsense. Yahomaru Lisa looked at Yizan with a slightly embarrassed expression. Of course, she didn't think it was because she had some thoughts in her heart, she just thought it was because Urahara Kazuki said that. It was nothing, and it became something. I don't listen to his nonsense, I listen to you. Yizan showed his most attractive smile to Lisa Yazumaru. Miss Lisa, I want to invite you to dinner. Just thank you for introducing us to Junyang Spiritual Arts Academy. You say, is this possible? Lisa Yahomaru only felt that her heart was beating a little faster. She didn't dare to meet Yizan's eyes at all, and looked to the side dodgingly. If you are with Kenpachi. Senior, do you think that my face alone is not enough? Yizan supported his head with one hand and looked at Lisa Yazumaru with a half-smile. Of course not. Lisa Yahomaru shook her head quickly. It's just that you said thank you for introducing you to the Central Academy of Spiritual Arts, so you shouldn't invite me by yourself. Since Miss Lisa requested this, then do as you wish. Yizan nodded in a good mood. Bring that big stupid Zaraki Kenpachi. It's alright, just find a chance to get rid of it when the time comes. Anyway, that guy can't think with his head, he believes whatever I say. Since that's the case, then let's talk about it. There are still things in the team. I'll go first. Lisa Yahomaru felt that she really couldn't see Yizan's smile and eyes. Know what's going on. The more she thought about it, the more flustered she felt, and without waiting for Yizan to answer, she got up and ran. Interesting. Yizan looked at the dishes on the table and gracefully filled himself with a glass of wine. Chapter 12 got lost. Chief's office. So many people were sent out, but no news was found. Yamamoto Shigekuni looked at Saifunyuan Yaiki and Jingle Chunshui who came to report, can't even find the exact location. There is no news. Saifunyuan Yi said affirmatively. I went to the virtual circle to check it myself, and the number of vastoids has not increased, but the number of Achukas has decreased a little, but it is not obviously. There will also be battles inside the virtual, and a few damages are within the normal range. Quote. Also, the reduction in the number of Achukas in the virtual circle is a good thing for us. Jingle Chunshui added. The expression on Yamamoto Shigekuni's face was still solemn. Anyway, there is an uncontrollable force appearing, which is definitely not a good thing for the Soul Society. Continue to investigate. If the balance that he has worked so hard to maintain for so many years is broken, I don't know what will happen. Shigekuni Yamamoto doesn't want to see the order he has worked so hard to establish being disrupted by any accident. Saifunyuan Yei nodded silently, but Jingle Chunshui said with a bitter face and exaggerated expression, in this case, our 8th division is really not enough. Yamamoto Shigekuni frowned. This season, the 6th graders of Shino are about to graduate, right? Jingle Chunshui nodded. There is still about a month. You can let them go to the squad for practice in advance. That doesn't guarantee that they will definitely come to the 8th division. Yamamoto Shigekuni was about to be pissed off by this disciple. You also have to ask me about this kind of thing. As the captain, don't you even have the charm to attract others to follow you? You can't even recruit team members. You are the captain. What else do you mean? Teacher. Okay, let's go down. Yamamoto Shigekuni waved his hand angrily. You can solve the manpower problem yourself. If you don't have enough people, find a way. After so many years, the teacher is fierce, and it's still so scary. Jingle Chunshui came out of Yamamoto Shigekuni's office, touched his stubble-covered chin, and let out a sigh. After coming out of the izakaya, Yizan looked at the somewhat unfamiliar runline on street, and had the idea of wanting to stroll here. Although the era of the world of the god of death is messed up, Runlinen still has a strong atmosphere of the Shogunate era. No matter what era the souls walking on the street come from, they are now wearing retro kimonos. The streets are also paved with bluestone slabs and gravel, and lanterns are hung on the eaves of the shops on both sides, with words such as wine, and sugar, cloth, etc. When the lights come on at night, it should be very beautiful here. Yizan sighed, and the next moment he was hit by something. He looked down and saw that it was a little girl in a kimono. "I'm sorry," the kid apologized, looking at Yizan's eyes full of fear. "Do I look scary?" Yizan touched his face suspiciously. "No, who in this world is more popular than me, and the flowers are blooming?" "It doesn't matter." After he finished speaking, he saw the child exaggeratedly relieved. "Excuse me, have you seen a child with white hair? Weren't you still afraid of me just now?" Yizan was taken aback. He thought that after he finished speaking, the child would escape. "No." "Oh." The little girl lowered her face in disappointment, waved at him, turned and ran away. "Pretty polite." Yizan shook his head amusingly. At this time, it had been a long time since he came out, and the afterglow of the setting sun fell on the street, coating the ancient city with a golden light, and at a glance, it was like an oil painting. Seeing that the time was almost up, Yizan started to walk back. However, the speed is still slow. By the time he walked to Beta-Iman, most of the sun had already sunk into the horizon. "Hey, we meet again." Yizan and Si Danfang greeted. "You see, you had to stop us at the time, but Zhenyang wasn't recruiting people yet." "It's none of my business whether Zhenyang recruits people or not," Danfang said in an angry voice. "I'm only responsible for not letting misfortunes and wandering souls in." "Okay, you are really a dutiful guy." Sure enough, this elmhead who didn't know how to work can only watch the door. "My goal is to make Beta-Iman a gate that will never be broken in Jingling Court." Si Danfang raised his head proudly. "However, as soon as Kurosaki Ichigo appeared, you put him in the misfortune. So, vows and promises are meant to be broken." Seeing that he didn't speak, Si Danfang thought he was moved by his great ideals, and asked very thoughtfully, "Are you going in now?" "Of course." Yizan nodded. "You wouldn't ask me what kind of badge I want, would you?" The captain of the 12th Division waited for something. "If you want this kind of thing, you go to him." Now that martial law has been lifted, Shinigami and Zhenyang's students don't need to use this. Si Danfang shook his head and turned to reveal the city gate behind him. "See you." Yizan said goodbye to him in a particularly good mood. Then, looking at the endless jingling court, he was stunned. "How is Mao going? How to get to Zhenyang Spiritual Arts Academy? I got lost." Yizan pinched his face in disbelief. "My mind is clear and I am not dreaming, but I am really lost. Which way was Lisa taking us?" Yizan thought hard, and finally found out. He was patronizing her at the time, and he didn't pay attention to which way he went. Big mistake. However, the schoolhouse was built so strangely that it should be able to be seen from a slightly higher place. Yizan thought of this, and the spiritual power gathered in his feet, Shunbu. That's right, Yizan is also familiar with Shunbu. Why is he so strong? Because of his control over spiritual power, he has the foundation of the previous Hokage world. This skill, which is almost in the same vein as ninjutsu, shouldn't be too easy to learn. Just take a look at it. Will not. That's all he hides and pretends. Climbing to the top of a house, Yizan can see far into the distance. All the high and low tile roofs are in sight. Chapter 13_Chase and Intercept. It seems that the direction is not right. Yizan couldn't help groaning in distress. Left, right, forget it, let's go ahead and take a look. If you can't do it, ask someone for directions. Although it's a bit embarrassing. When Yizan passed through some unknown streets and was still at a loss to find the direction, a few patrolling death gods came forward. "Who's on the roof? Stop." Yizan's mouth twitched when he heard it. Could he not shout such brainless lines when catching someone? It made people like him who didn't want to run feel that they couldn't do it if they didn't run. You ask the uncle to stop, and the uncle will not stop. That's right, that's the mentality. Yizan ran and ran all the way, ran and ran. After running, he finally alerted the captain level. Yizan looked at the three captains who surrounded himself in the middle, and didn't know how to react. Saifeng Yuan Yi, and the other two are cannon fodder who have no impression at all. But just running like this can lead to three captains. I am indeed the man who bears the fate. Actually, I'm a student of Zhenyang. Yizan didn't want to fight with the three captains. Besides, there was a girl named Yi, who quickly revealed her identity and explained, actually, I'm just lost. Faced with the vigilant attitude of the three captains, he continued to explain, although I know that you may not believe it, but in fact it is like this. Tell me how you got lost. Chased by so many people. Saifeng Yuan Yi looked at him speechlessly. In fact, the patrol of Jingling Court was not her business at all. She just happened to pass by here and heard the movement to join in the fun. Now it seems that this hilarity is really interesting. If the other two asked him, Yizan would definitely ignore him, but since it was a lady asking, of course Yizan knew everything and said everything. What's more, this matter is a bit nonsensical, and he doesn't mind saying it to make the lady smile. It's like this. I went to Runlanan to have a meal with Urahara-senpai before, and then he left first, and I went for a walk outside before coming back. When I came back, I found that I was lost and I didn't meet anyone on the road. So I decided to climb on the roof myself to see where the school was. Quote. When Yizan said this, he shrugged and sat down cross-legged indifferently, with a very condescending attitude. Then when I was looking for the way, I met a few patrolling death gods. They regarded me as a suspicious person. Of course I couldn't just grab my hands and ran away. Yizan sighed. Then, you've all seen it, that's it. Quiet. It's a dead silence. This is really... Yi paused for a while, and found that the matter was quite reasonable, without any loopholes. Yes, Shunbu is very fast, and they can't catch up with you. Thank you for the compliment. Yizan's expression changed, and he secretly said, is this the olive branch that big sister Yi held out to me? Yi, he disturbed the peace and order of Jingling Court, you still praise him. Go for a walk, don't disturb our work. The captain with long blonde hair and a bitter look on his face waved to Yi. Young man, come with us. Yizan gave him a cold look. No time. It's up to you. The man said, and stepped forward. As soon as he moved Yizan, he found out, turned somersaults on the spot to dodge, and used Shunbu when he got up. But in a blink of an eye, the two had chased more than a dozen laps in midair, surrounded by phantoms left behind because of the speed. Hey darling, this kid is not bad. Another big man touched his forehead, but Fengqiaolojuro is not as fast as you, why don't you try it? What's there to try? Saifeng Yuan yawned at night. Senior I Chuan, if you find it interesting, you can go by yourself. But the two of you are too busy, and you are so inspiring for such a big thing. Akawa Luo Wu laughed and said, it's not even more of a concern for your second team than the two of us. Let's not talk about anyone. At the other end, Yizan and Fengqiaolujuro's chasing battle is also coming to an end. Shunbu tests not only spiritual power, but also muscle activity and physical fitness. Yizan naturally had no problem, but Fengqiaolujuro's strength was not here. After running down for so long, Yizan still didn't change his heart, but he was out of breath and could no longer run. You kid. Fengqiaolujuro bit Kiba and pointed his finger at Yizan. You're nice, what's your name? Yizan. It turned out to be him. Ichuan Luowu and Saifeng Yuan looked at each other at night, and both saw shock in each other's eyes. That initial Reiatsu was close to the level of a vice captain, a genius who was very strong in vain, and a genius who could learn Ghost Taoism. Now, even Shunpo is so powerful. Such a genius has been buried in a place like the 80th district before. I suddenly want to test his strength. Yi said softly. Ikawa Luowu glanced at her. I told you to go just now, didn't you say I was boring? Now I've changed my mind. After Yi finished speaking, he came to Yizan in a flash. Brother Yizan, let's play. Yizan, oh my god, is this eldest sister here too? His speed is one of the best in the Soul Society. If I run too fast, will I be exposed? Yizan decided that he should run a few laps, and then fake 2.6 to admit defeat. It's not bad to jump into the arms of the eldest sister, right? Wow, big sister, I haven't agreed yet, so you will come. Are you too enthusiastic? Yizan was just a distraction. When he looked up, Siphon Yuan Yi was about to catch himself, so he quickly reincarnated and ran away. Little brother Yizan, Shunbu is doing well. I'm really honored to be praised by the elder sister. Yizan replied with a smile. However, it's still far from me. After Yi said this, only a phantom was left on the spot. She didn't know that Yizan had been posing for her long ago. Big sister's speed is really fast. Yizan said, pretending that he didn't realize that Yi had already run in front of him and slammed into her arms. Chapter 14 _ very complicated. Yi didn't expect him to hit him like this. Before he could react, he felt someone jump on him, and then he lost his focus in an instant, and the two fell on the roof together. Yizan ate enough tofu contentedly, and then pretended to stand up in a hurry. Although the skin is a little darker, it is really a very interesting figure. But at this moment, Siphon Yuan Yi's heart felt very complicated. Although this seems to be just a mistake caused by the speed being too fast to stop, why do I always feel that there is something wrong with it? When Siphon Yuan Yi thought of this, he quickly shook his head and threw this possibility out of his mind. Judging from younger brother Yizan's performance, this is all his strength. It can't be intentional. Okay, let's go with us. Yi stood up and grabbed Yizan's back collar with one hand to prevent him from escaping. However, Yizan was not ready to run away. Where are you going? I have to go back to school. Yizan deliberately said in a blank tone. This kind of big sister head type of women likes to be strong, and it is definitely right to use the tone of 30. Sure enough, Siphon Yuan Yi replied, send you back to Junyang. Ah, that's it. I said earlier, I wouldn't run away, so I still. Yizan's surprised tone made Yi feel very unhappy, especially since he still looked at himself with such eyes. What does this mean? Don't you deserve a beating? Yi clenched his fist and was about to shoot. Don't, I was wrong, eldest sister, I was wrong. Yizan held Yi's hand while begging for mercy. Eating tofu for the second time, achieved. Since Yizan revealed his identity, those who chased him at the beginning have been sent away, and now there are only two captains who wanted to watch the fun. Seeing Yi grabbed Yizan, Fengqiaolojiro gave her a comparison. Thumbs up. Okay, you can send him back. I still have something to do. I'll go first. Hey, isn't it you? Wait. Before Yizan finished speaking, Siphon Yuan Yi had already scurried into the distance, and there was no shadow. Quote. It's really fast. It took a long time to spit out such a sentence. Let's go, look at how well you are treated, and there are two captains who will escort you back. Fengqiaolojiro put his hand on Yizan's shoulder. I am Fengqiaolojiro, and the one on the side is Love. Chuan Luowu. Yizan didn't recognize them at first, but when he heard their names, he remembered them, Masked Army. But still cannon fodder. Hello, two seniors. It's still quite polite, Fengqiaolojiro said lukewarmly. Yizan knew that he was talking about running around and causing misunderstandings. But you can't blame me for this. Those people jumped out from afar and said, who is on the roof? Stop. What's the misunderstanding? Ikawa Luowu thought for a while, but didn't think there was anything wrong with this sentence. Let me explain it to you. First of all, my first reaction when I heard this was that there were strange people behind me. Then I must run away, right? They told me to stop. I'm not a fool, how can it be possible to stand still? Speaking of this, a trace of ridiculousness flashed in Yizan's eyes. Furthermore, if they said this to me, it would be even more impossible for me to stand. I didn't do anything bad, and I was chased for no reason. I'm sure there's a problem. Then I have to run, you say, isn't it? I actually think it makes sense. Aikawa Luowu scratched his hair with a confused look, and looked at Fengchao Lujiro. What do you think? What can I say? Fengchao Lujiro had a helpless expression on his face. The strength is very strong, and it is this kind of character. In the near future, there will be another difficult character in the squad. Why don't there be more people like Aizen, with good strength, good temper, hard-working and not much trouble? ... They sent Yizan to the school gate and left. By this time the sun had completely gone down, and the sparse lights illuminated the way to the dormitory. Yizan walked halfway and stopped suddenly. He found that there was someone hiding behind the bushes 3 steps ahead. There are on both sides. Is this an ambush, an outflanking stance? Don't hide, come out. Yizan folded his arms and made an arrogant gesture. Behind the bushes. Has he found us? Don't believe him, you are cheating us. Are you talking there thinking I can't hear you? Yizan let out a mocking snort, pulled out the bamboo knife that had been hanging around his waist, and waved it gently. Swish. The tall bushes were directly cut in half, revealing a frightened figure hiding behind. The one on the left wants me to do it too. Come out, who's afraid of who? The person hiding on the other side didn't feel the fear of the air blades swept over their heads. Although they were surprised by Yizan's strength, they still had the confidence to be ruthless. Impressive. Yizan's eyes flashed a stern look. So you are hiding here to block me? What are you? We're here, watching the moon. Yes, seeing the moon. Yizan, who had just fooled Fengchao Lujiro and Aikawa Luowu seriously, who would believe this kind of nonsense? If you're going to provoke me, just light it up, or get out of here. Don't be useless. ... Just as Yizan guessed, the people hiding here are all going to ambush him. The reason is that he has been in too much limelight recently, causing them to be reprimanded by their parents. At first, they wanted to call Matsuo Ran, but the guy was so timid and wouldn't say anything. Now it seems that the guy didn't lie to them. This Yizan is really amazing. I really regret it now. How to do? Although they had already made up their minds to retreat, Yizan was not prepared to let them go. Otherwise, in the next 3 days, someone will come to challenge you, and if you find something wrong, you will want to run. How annoying is that? Are you coming together or one by one? It was said that we came to see the moon. A group of people stepped back one after another, looking at Yizan as if they were looking at a monster. Chapter 15_want to come and go. And these people, not to mention that they had the intention to retreat, and now seeing Yizan getting closer, the timid immediately turned around and ran away. Since Yizan made up his mind that he would not let them go easily, he naturally couldn't let them run away. The 26th broken way, Yuhi flame plug. Boom. The fastest man stopped suddenly, and the wall of fire that appeared out of thin air was only 10 centimeters away from him. The cold sweat of everyone fell down in a flash. Want to run? Did you ask me to agree? Yizan sneered. Not long ago, I was still thinking, why no one came to provoke it. It was so boring, so boring. Then you all appeared. You said, how could I not play with you? Just when they stopped, the flames quickly circled into a circle, enveloping Yizan and them together. Those people had the intention of retreating, but now they were even more scared. They didn't dare to say anything about looking at the moon. They gathered together tremblingly, took a defensive posture, and looked at Yizan with extreme alertness. Of course, not everyone was afraid of him. After a stalemate for a while, a guy with a spiky head finally stood up. His tone was still arrogant. It's just the 26th, he will, and so will we. There's nothing to be afraid of. Yi. The others stared at him blankly. not knowing whether they were ashamed of their retreat or surprised by his courage. Since I was a child, when I had no memory, I was training ghosts every day, training shunpo, and practicing white fights with my father. Not a single day was wasted. How could it be possible? How could it be possible to lose to a guy like you? He focused on Yuhi, and looked at Yizan's eyes full of anger. In fact, this is why Yizan is hated by others. A genius, especially a genius who suddenly appeared without a background, just by such existence has blocked the way of countless people. The person who stood up to talk to Yizan was named Nan Naya. His grandfather was a member of the Central Room 36. He had been subjected to strict family training since he was a child. Genius. Kuchiki Byakuya is the only heir of the Kuchiki family, the head of the four aristocrats, and he recognizes him better than him. But what is this person in front of him? Just because he came from Liuhun Street, he was a little stronger in vein and learned a few ghost ways that they knew from childhood. Can he be called a genius? Funny. Today, he will personally prove that there is an unbridgeable gap between the people born in Liuhun Street and their nobles. Kun Komer, the mask of flesh and blood, the omnipotence, the thing that flutters high, and bears the name of mankind. Burning heat and strife, rolling back south across the sea, and marching forward. As he chanted with a hideous expression on his face, the dazzling Yuhi color light group gradually formed in his hands. The students who were scared to lose their fighting spirit by Yizan also recovered one by one, and cheered Nan Nia excitedly, as if he could definitely defeat Yizan. I don't even think about who the person who was scared to death just now was alive. Towards the front, the 31-way, Kai artillery. Ha tilde boom tilde. You're not bad, you are much stronger than those guys who only know how to cry. Yizan swung the bamboo knife that he had just used to split the red cannon, and a cloud of green smoke drifted from the knife. Yizan smelled the smell of burning wood. He actually. I thought it was the limit to escape, but I didn't expect that there were still people. Split with a bamboo knife. A red cannon. This kind of thing. How is it possible? No matter how many people present did not believe it, things still happened in front of them. Although Nan Nia was also shocked, she did not flinch because of this, and saw that his originally angry face turned gloomy, and he started another round of chants. Kun who comes, the mask of flesh and blood, the Vientian, the one who flutters high, the one who takes the name of man, the truth and temperance, who stands on the wall of the dream without sin with only his claws. Fire pendant. The dazzling white light illuminated the dark night, and the trail, which had only been provided by a few street lamps, was instantly bright as day. The 31 red artillery and the 33 blue fire pendant that broke the Tao one after another were very reluctant for Nan Nia. He was breathing heavily, his eyes fixed on the center of the light. Destroy yourself, the black dog of Rondanini will burn and cut your own throat at a glance. The 9th tyranny of the Tao, collapsing wheel. Yizan's figure suddenly appeared in front of Nan Nia. At this time, he had finished singing, and the yellow rope-shaped spiritual power wrapped around Nan Nia's body. Nan Nia was also shocked and tried to break free from the bondage of spiritual power. But Yizan's strength was beyond his imagination, and the difference between the two was 10 times or 20 times. This was doomed to his struggle. Will be in vain. You're not bad, just stay there for now, I'll have something to tell you later. As for you, Yizan glanced at the others, take some courage, the dignity of a warrior, wouldn't it be better to die than back off? Everyone shook their heads desperately, and no one else stood up. Although they have been involved in family training since childhood, it was just training, which is very different from the current situation. What's more, this guy Yizan is really scary. A group of cowards. Yizan threw out these words with disdain, and a figure holding a bamboo knife shuttled between them, accompanied by the panic screams that those people made after they were sent flying, resounding through the sky. You guys are wrong. The 3 on-duty teachers who rushed over to hear the movement looked at the scene after the fight, and their faces were about to become angry. Fighting is forbidden in the school. You still use such a powerful ghost. Who will move first? They. Yizan stretched out his hand and pointed to the guys behind him who were beaten to death. The teacher on duty looked at Yizan, who was clean and unscathed, then looked at Nan Naya, who was bound by spiritual power, and a group of people lying on the ground. Let people go first. The teacher on duty glanced at Yizan. At this point, it's useless to tie it up. Yizan shrugged and did as he was told. Originally, I wanted to try to take this guy as a younger brother. Although the strength is not very good, he may be a cannon fodder, but at least he still has a little backbone. Chapter 16_upside down black and white. Faculty office. This is Yizan's second time here. The teachers on duty were looking at a group of people who never dared to raise their heads in front of them with livid faces. Very good, all students who have always performed well. As for the guy who came in from the outside like a stroll, and looked around with great interest, he now recognizes it. It is Yizan who has been in the limelight recently. Who will explain what's going on? Of course, those who bowed their heads were embarrassed to say that they wanted to besiege Yizan, but Yizan found out before he even started, and then tried to escape but was stopped, and then a group of people were hanged and beaten by him alone. Couldn't be more embarrassing. As for Yizan, he felt that there was nothing to say. Isn't the fact very clear? A group of people and a person with a long brain know what's going on. This kind of silence, in the eyes of the teacher on duty, is unrepentant. He got angry immediately, took out a form from the drawer and slapped it heavily on the table. 500. What are you doing? Write your name on it. At this time, the teacher on duty who stayed in place to count the losses also came back. The bushes were chopped down, and there are the 26 Yuhi flame plugs, the 31 red artillery pieces, and the 33 blues. The traces left by the fire pendant. This road needs to be rebuilt, and if the work is rushed at night, it should be repaired tomorrow morning. The teacher who took the form snorted coldly. None of them said what was going on. I think everyone should be punished and recorded a major demerit. Huh. Hearing the major demerits, all the people who had their heads down raised their heads. It's just to tear down the road of the school, it's nothing. It's just a major demerit, and you won't think it's anything. The teacher patted the table on the table again. Don't talk nonsense, just put your name sign. And that Yizan, why do you have everything? Hearing this, Yizan raised his eyebrows. There is a lot of trouble in Jingling Court in the afternoon, and then the school is also rioted in the evening. Do you think your name is not big enough, and you want everyone to know you? Yizan, sounds like this. Seeing that he didn't answer, the teacher looked like he was being reprimanded honestly, but the more he talked, the smoother he said, yes, your initial spiritual power is very high, you are very powerful in white fights, and you have a talent for learning ghost ways, and today you have proved you. The speed is also very fast. You have already succeeded, you have become famous, and you still have to make trouble with these classmates. What's the point? Yizan, this teacher looks very resentful. Even if it's Kuchiki Byakuya, he's also a genius. White fight, ghost way, shunpo, how can he not? Think for yourself, since you've been in school for so long, have you even heard of anything that happened to him once? Although what you said seems to make sense. But I didn't take the initiative to cause anything, just taught them a lesson when people who didn't have long eyes rushed up. Yizan sneered, otherwise. Could it be that people came to provoke me and hit me on the left cheek, and I have to push my right cheek? If they can't beat me, I should tie myself up and capture me. There is no such reason. After saying this, Yizan stretched out his finger and pointed at the people who were squeezed together to sign on the form. I'm just walking back to the dorm and they're ambushing me there. Who do you think is to blame? As soon as Yizan's voice fell, those people screamed like a frying pan. I really can't blame us for this. We were just there to watch the moon. Who knew this guy suddenly rushed out and insisted that we ambush him and wouldn't let us go? Shuo Miyake is right. We thought at first, don't care about this guy, let's move to another place, but this guy is crazy and uses Yuhi's flame plug of the 26th way to break our way. Blocked. Yes, yes, teacher, we were scared at the time. If Nanya hadn't come forward to protect us, maybe we wouldn't have seen the teacher. Hearing this, Yi-zan couldn't hold back, and burst out laughing. Are you still laughing? The teacher on duty looked at him angrily. As a student of the True Spiritual Arts Academy, I will always be a god of death in the future, and now I don't know that your friends help each other, who will be willing to give their backs to each other in the future. To you. I'm laughing at them talking nonsense with their eyes open, turning black into white, but people still believe it stupidly. You. What's wrong with me? I'm just stating the facts. Do you believe that there will be a group of people hiding behind the bushes to watch the moon? Today is not a festival to watch the moon. Where does this kind of leisure come from? Regarding Yi-zan's rhetorical question, the teacher on duty had nothing to say. This matter will be handled by the dean, all of you will sign your names, and then go back to the dormitory. This is the first time such a serious incident has happened in the years I have managed the Central Spiritual Arts Academy, and I will report it to the dean. Must be dealt with seriously. Quote. Soon, a week passed. The things that the teacher on duty said to be handled by the dean seemed to have disappeared. Yi-zan naively thought that those stupid teachers finally found out their mistakes, until Baitian Ryoko said in a very tangled voice, Yi-zan, do you know that you have been punished? Yi-zan was stunned at the time. What punishment? Why don't I have any impression at all? You don't know. Baitian Ryoko looked at him in surprise, because they were in class, and they all lowered their voices. Could it be? Yi-zan remembered, it wasn't that he fought those guys that night. No, it wasn't even a fight, but he accepted the opponent's provocation and taught them a little. What is it? You said so. Zaraki Kenpachi also came over and looked at Yi-zan curiously. He didn't think that warning and punishment were anything. Anyway, he was used to finding someone to fight every day and being chased by the teacher. Because I had a fight with someone else. Yi-zan said in a horrified manner about what happened that night. Chapter 17_punishment will come. I don't think you did anything wrong in this matter. Tian Liangzi became more and more indignant after hearing Yi-zan's statement. It's obvious that they ambushed you first, and if you can't beat you, you want to run away. How can there be such a good thing in this world? You should teach them a lesson. That's right. Zhengmu Janba sounded in agreement. However, warnings and punishments are a bit troublesome. I heard that the recruits in the Death God team are all based on performance and normal performance. If there are warnings and punishments, points will be deducted. In this case, some popular teams may not be able to join. Quote. This is not a problem. Yi-zan simply shook his head. Originally, with his strength, the captain is not a problem. Would he care about a mere punishment? It's just that this punishment shouldn't fall on him in the first place. If he suffers from this loss, he won't be called Yi-zan. Do you know who should cancel this punishment? This. Baitian Ryoko thought for a while, and said unsurely, if this is the case, I saw the punishment notice posted on the bulletin board, and it was stamped by the dean. It should be revoked by the dean. Yi-zan's focus was not on these, but on the fact that this punishment report was still posted on the bulletin board. Ryoko in disbelief. In that case, who in the whole school doesn't know? His male god plan. He still wants to maintain his image. This punishment must be revoked, no matter what the reason, no matter what means. Where is the dean's office? Baitian Ryoko was shocked by Yi-zan's gaze when he looked at him, and it took a long time before he said, the dean doesn't have an office. Well, you said this when we were in class on the first day, and you hadn't come yet. I may not know. The dean of the True Central Spiritual Arts Academy. It is good that the captain is Yamamoto Yuanujai Shigekuni. That old guy. Conspiracy. This is definitely a conspiracy. By the way, besides me, who else has been punished? After Yi-zan asked this, he saw Baitian Ryoko frowning in embarrassment, as if he couldn't bear to tell himself anything. Am I the only one? Hakuda Ryoko nodded. In other words, Big Brother Yi fought with the person who provoked him. After being discovered by the teacher, the school punished Big Brother Yi. It was not until this time that Kenpachi Zengeki understood the matter, and he was angry at the moment. Hit the table. The bang was heard throughout the classroom. Zaraki Kenpachi, what's your opinion on my class? The teacher stopped writing on the blackboard and turned to look in their direction. Teacher, I have no opinion. Zaragi Kenpachi touched the back of his head, knowing that he was making a lot of noise just now. Sit down and listen to the class. The teacher said, glaring at him, then turned around and continued to write on the blackboard. But Yi-zan didn't have time to pay attention to this trivial matter. He was thinking about why only he was punished in this matter. Speaking of which, the smashers who surrounded him that day were also some kind of nobles. Those people must have suffered a loss because they found fault, so they need to find a place to go back. That old man Yamamoto seemed to be very powerful, but Yi-zan knew that no matter how powerful he was not the only one in the family. They have always preached that nobles are the most powerful beings in the Soul Society, and the entire Soul Society relies on their protection to exist. As a result, the second generation of those families came to find fault. Not only were they frightened, they were also taught a lesson, and then they were caught by the teacher. Use a little relationship and let yourself get a punishment for nothing. Thinking of this, Yi-zan thought about the expression of the teacher on duty who asked them to sign at that time, and what he said seemed to be pushing the fault on himself. I should have foreseen it long ago, and I can only blame myself for not thinking about this at the beginning, but I was careless. However, things are already like this, so I can only go to meet the Yamamoto Yuanyujai heavy country. That legendary Bankai would affect the stability of the Soul Society. The old man. For the next class, please help me find a teacher to ask for leave. I have left beforehand. Are you really going to go to the dean? Forget it. He probably isn't that easy to talk to. Ryoko Baida looked at him worriedly. And it's so easy to see. How do you know if you don't try? Yi-zan looked at Baiti and Ryoko's worried expression. His heart moved, and the hand under the seat quietly stretched out. Hold. Yi-zan, what are you doing? Her hand was caught by surprise, and Ryoko Bashin panicked, but she didn't try to break free, but her face was a little yuhi. Ryoko, thank you. Yi-zan looked at her intently, and his deep eyes could almost make people fall into it. I'm nothing at all. Yi-zan looked at her mixed shyness and became more and more complacent. I like Ryoko very much. I also. Ryoko Hakuta said hesitantly, and before he could finish speaking, the bell rang first. Yi-zan immediately let go and stood up. Then I'll go first, you remember to ask for leave for me. After he finished speaking, he turned around and left the classroom, leaving Hayakuta Ryoko behind him and staring blankly at him. I also like Yi-zan very much. After Yi-zan left school, he found that he had encountered an old problem again. He didn't know the way. Where is the captain's office? Yi-zan now felt very big at the intersection with the front, back, left and right looking exactly the same. He really couldn't blame him for being a lunatic. He had never lost his way in Konoha before. The only thing to blame is that the jingling court is really too big. The houses are almost built, and the roofs are all gray tiles. Why did you forget to ask for directions just now? Yi-zan looked at the endless roof in distress. However, even if you ask, Ryoko probably doesn't know where she is. After thinking about it, Yi-zan decided to ask that guy Urahara Kazuki. After all, the 12th Division is engaged in research, and the house looks the most strange, and you can see it at a glance when you walk nearby. It's impossible to be wrong no matter what. After a few ups and downs, Yi-zan finally arrived at the 12th Division safely, but his sudden appearance startled the intern girl who was cleaning with Asian UN qualifications. Chapter 18 Looking for Yamamoto. Yi-zan has always been very gentle to the lady. He bent down to pick up the broom she dropped on the ground, and said softly, I have something to do with Captain Urahara, is he there? I'm here. The girl hesitantly pointed to a house not far away. He took Captain Eisen to visit the new invention, and he's not available for the time being. Then I can wait a while. Yizan said nonchalantly, are you a 6th grade senior? Ah, yes. The girl nodded cautiously, you know me. How can you not know this kind of thing? Which of the gods of death these days doesn't go to school in Zhenyang? I guess. Yizan laughed, is internship fun? It's not fun. The girl shook her head, it's just doing experiments and monitoring data. I'm new here, I'm just sweeping the floor. Yizan was amused by her words, it's not bad, girls should do some safe work. After all, fighting and killing is too dangerous. My brother said the same. The girl sighed again, actually, you can go to the house for a meeting. They have been in for a while, and they should come out soon. You go and sit, and I will make a pot for you. Tea. I'm so sorry. It's okay, it should be. The girl said, put the broom in the corner and motioned Yizan to follow her. Sure enough, he didn't have to wait long. The hot tea in front of Yizan was just served, and the door of the reception room was pushed open. Rare customer. Urahara Kazuki exclaimed exaggeratedly, isn't it time for class? Why did you come to me? I'm here to ask you how to get to the captain's office, and how to find the captain if he's not there. What's the matter with you looking for the captain? Do you want to graduate early to be a god of death? Of course not. I won't leave Mao until I take Kuchiki Byakuya as my younger brother. Because I was punished by the school and was stamped by the dean, that is, Captain Yamamoto, I had to ask him to revoke it. It shouldn't be easy. Urahara Kazuki looked at him gloatingly. The old man is quite stubborn. I haven't seen him change what he said. How do you know if you don't try? Yizan laughed, full of confidence. He was in charge of this matter, and the few who were in trouble didn't have anything, how could he receive this punishment? Anyway, tell me where you are. I'm afraid to tell you you're lost too. Is this guy so kind to take me there? Facing Yizan's gaze, Urahara Kazuki laughed. I'll draw a map for you. Yizan. On the empty road, Yizan took the map to identify it carefully. Turn left, turn right, go straight, turn a corner. There is a person standing in front of you. Chestnut-colored curly hair, a pair of black-rimmed glasses, and a gentle and harmless smile on his face. The well-known old man in the 13th episode of Gote. However, Yizan knew that this guy was a little boss, obviously very good, but he was killed by Kurosaki Ichigo inexplicably. Looks like we're on our way. Aizen smiled gently, I've been paying attention to you since the 12th division came out. This sounded a bit strange. Yizan thought about it carefully, and suddenly realized it. This is obviously his standard way of hooking up with girls and younger brothers. Could it be that he still wants to brush some favorability with me and let me be his younger brother? Want to be beautiful. It turns out that Captain Aizen was always in front of me, and I didn't even notice it. Yi Xuanpi responded with a smile, what a coincidence. I heard that you were punished by the school, do you want to find the captain? You know this kind of thing too. Yizan frowned, and began to wonder how widespread this punishment would be. The reputation damage fee must be paid by them. Sorry, then I seem to have said something you don't want to hear. Seeing that Yizan didn't answer, Lan Ran apologized at a loss. The image of this old man is really good. Yizan looked at Aizen uncertainly. Who would have thought that such a prudent man who would apologize to his juniors and would not refuse as long as others asked, was actually a careerist? I don't care about Captain Aizen, it's me who is thinking about it. Yizan shook his head, and two completely different plans started a deadly battle in his mind. 1. Conquer Aizen, transform Bengyu with him, defeat the Spirit King, and rule the Soul World. 2. If you don't accept Aizen, kill him after he defected to the virtual circle to get Bengyu, and then kill the King of Spirit. There are 3, 4, 5, 6. There are so many choices, it seems that each one is very interesting. When he simulated N methods of failure in his mind, and his eyes fell on Yizan. Is it a matter of punishment? Maybe I can help you say something nice to Captain Yamamoto. Although it may not work. Aizen's voice was gentle and kind, and it contained the care of an elder. In this regard, Yizan has only one thought: goosebumps. I don't think Captain Aizen talks like this. So can we talk properly? Like a man. Just do it. Hearing Yizan's words, the gentle expression on Lan Ran's face froze for a moment. This is my own matter. I will find Captain Yamamoto to deal with it. I believe he will give me a fair and just result. Yizan said righteously. In that case, you can try it. After all, the 4.5 gentle mask on Aizen's face still didn't come off, and the tone was still so gentle. Or hypocritical. When I was your age, I liked to do everything on my own. After that, Aizen walked ahead one step ahead. His refusal would disgust this ambitious man, but Yizan didn't know it, but he didn't like Aizen's warm tone. In comparison, the Aizen who counted the big back after the betrayal made people more conquest. Now this kind of fake and warm old man, I really feel uncomfortable when I look at it. Or, find a chance to tear off his mask. At that time, would he react like a god and panic? Shock. Unbelievable. Or show your true nature? Looking forward to it. Chapter 19_Revocation. You are Yizan. Yamamoto Shigekuni looked at the student who was standing in front of him, wearing the school uniform of the True Spirit Academy. Are you dissatisfied with the punishment? Nonsense. Of course dissatisfied. I've only taught a few idiots who don't have long eyes, and you actually want to punish me. Yizan looked at the pleated face of the old man Yamamoto speechlessly. The beard is still tied with ribbons. Are you imitating Dumbledore, old man? Even though Yizan had a monstrous complaint in his heart, but only 2 words came out of his mouth: yes. All patience is for the girls of the soul world. This punishment is a decision I made after careful consideration. Yamamoto Shigekuni looked at Yizan seriously. It's true that those people ambushed on your way first, although you are not at fault. But you were behind. Do it first, and they regretted it by then. You can't deny that. Everyone has come to the door, why not? Yizan sneered. Could it be that someone ambushed Captain Yamamoto, only to see you and find out that you are stronger than them, and you don't want to fight anymore? You don't want to fight in this situation. Repair by hand. I don't think it makes sense. Of course I can. You are different from me. Yamamoto Shigekuni was still serious. Do you think you can beat the world invincible? Of course. Yizan was very confident about this. He is the protagonist, he bears the fate. Everyone in this world will fail, will lose, only he will not. So, you can beat me too. Yamamoto Shigekuni released his spiritual power, and the terrifying spiritual pressure caused the documents on the table to vibrate. The papers flew over, making a clattering sound, and then the whole house shook. Yizan was stunned, but he didn't expect Yamamoto Shigekuni's coercion to be 5 or 6 times that of the captain. It seems to be a little bit stronger than himself. But it's just a little bit. He was disdainful in his heart, but he still pretended to be doing his best to resist. My heart is so tired, I feel like I will never love again. After a while, Yamamoto Shigekuni felt that it was almost the same, and then gradually withdrew the spiritual power he had released, and taught Yizan earnestly. There are many strong people in this world, those who were born, those who were not born, and those who were hidden in the dark and waited for an opportunity. You have offended almost all the nobles in Jingling Court, so you are not afraid that they will teach you a lesson regardless. Lesson. Save it. They were kind enough to come, and I cleaned them up one by one. I've never heard of arguing and fighting at school, and if you lose, you have to ask your parents to come forward. It's not too embarrassing. Yizan thought of this, and a sneer flashed on his face. Indeed, they are indeed not ashamed. Not only are they not ashamed, but they also punish themselves. Isn't it necessary for Jingling Court to teach rules and laws? Don't tell right and wrong. Yizan put his hands on the table and looked at Shigekuni Yamamoto. I know what you mean by saying so much. You are not one to say, this inexplicable punishment is to quell the anger of those nobles who hide behind and dare not stand out. But I don't need it. What kind of nobles? It is not enough for him to clean up alone. Like the Kuchiki family, the Sifun family still has some strength, and the other guys who are like tortoises with their heads shrinking. Ha ha. Let the horse come over. Who is afraid of who? Pop, pop, pop. A crisp applause sounded in the corner. Yizan looked back and saw that there was still a dark room there, but now the door was opened, and another old man came out. Although Yizan didn't know him, he was not an ordinary person looking at his posture. Captain, this kid has the character of your past. The old man said to Yamamoto Shigekuni, then turned to look at Yizan. I made a bet with the captain just now that you really came. What is this situation? Sing double read. Yizan looked at this strange old man, and then at Yamamoto Shigekuni. Don't get me wrong, this punishment is actually a test given to you by the captain. It is also a warning. The old man explained, even if you don't come, it will be revoked after a while. Finch Department. Yamamoto Shigekuni was obviously very dissatisfied with the old man's talkativeness and interrupted him aloud. It's almost done. The old man named Kobo was not very afraid of Yamamoto Shigekuni's appearance. He waved his hand casually and continued. Since it's a test, if you pass it, is there any reward? Yizan smiled. Since this punishment will be revoked whether I come or not, it will definitely not just be revoked. How about being my apprentice? After a long time, it turns out that this old man wants to accept me as an apprentice. It's awkward enough. The old man Shanbang is quite strong, and he can be regarded as powerful in the Soul Society. He has no reason not to have this thick thigh delivered to his door. Yes, of course there is no problem. Yizan nodded again and hugged the golden thigh graciously. As for the position of Old Man Yamamoto when he fights with King Spirit in the future. Whatever his position, I will talk about it later. Anyway, I, Yizan, dare to eat anything, but I never suffer. ... When Yizan returned to school, the afternoon class had not yet started, but classroom 290 was already full of people. Everyone was discussing the punishment notice that was taken down not long after it was posted. Now that the master is here, everyone's eyes are on him. Both men and women, looking at Yizan's eyes were full of admiration. Even Matsuo Ran, who had had a fight with Yizan before, was no exception. Yizan, how did you do it? Tell us about it. Several girls sitting by the door suddenly gathered around. Yizan smiled and found a seat to sit down. This was originally a misunderstanding. I explained it to the captain. Has it been cancelled now? Of course, the list on the bulletin board was torn up when we passed over there. It's quite fast. Yizan nodded with satisfaction. It's just a misunderstanding. Beishin Ryoko took a step slower just now, and now he can only sit across from Yizan with another girl, looking at Yizan with a bit of sadness in his eyes. It's like you're slow, you can't really blame me. Yizan only thought it was funny, but also a little proud. Thank you for being the first to tell me about this, otherwise I might not have known it by now. Baitien Ryoko's face improved a little. Chapter 20 _ It turns out that the god of death is weak. Yizan, you won't be in the same class as me next semester. Baitien Liangzi looked at Yizan with tears in her eyes. Are you going to the 5th grade? Yeah. Yizan buried himself in packing his things. Today is the last day of this semester. They just finished the last class, and now they are on vacation. During the more than half-month vacation, most of the students from Liuhun Street would choose to go back to visit their families, and the students who originally lived in Jingling Court didn't even need to pack their things, and ran away after class. Baitien Ryoko came here to help Yizan organize things. It would be better if they could go back together. As a result, I got this news. Although Yizan was tidying things up, he didn't want to return to Seoul Street, but what special training was he going to attend? Because he is going to skip to the 5th grade next semester. It felt like I was thrown away all of a sudden. Hayakuta Ryoko's heart was very complicated, and the movement of organizing things was slow. With such an expression, she felt as if she had become a heartless man. Yizan couldn't bear the unhappy expression of a girl the most, and said quickly, although we are in the same grade, we are still in the same school, and some courses are not the same. Do the upper and lower grades go together? You haven't said that before. I didn't even say Kenpachi about this. Yizan felt that he was really wronged. Who knew that Urahara Kazuki really did what he said and said he skipped a grade to the 5th grade, but he actually did it. Actually, it was also unexpected. Quote. Smooth tongue. Baitien Ryoko snorted. Yes, what you said is right. Yizan nodded again and again. At this time, a flash of light flashed in his mind. Why don't I take you back later? This, too troublesome. Baitien Ryoko was so nervous that she even messed up the folded clothes in her hand. Yizan smiled. I haven't been to the 18th district of Liuhun Street. I don't know, would you like to invite me as a guest? Ryoko lowered her head, her face Yuhi. When? Of course. The bright sun spreads on the road, and the sparkling river flows through the foot. Compared with the prosperity of Runlinon, this place is extraordinarily peaceful. Just when Yizan thought so, a familiar roar came from a distance, shoo. Baitien Ryoko's face immediately turned pale. It's false. It's still a giant phantom. Yizan nodded. Isn't this the perfect time to show your strength in front of girls? Yizan put Xingli on the ground. Wait for me here. After speaking, a few ups and downs passed towards the place where the sound came from. As the only natural enemy of the soul, when the virtual appeared, the people around either fled or hid, and now there are only 2 gods of death confronting that thing. At first, Yizan thought he was late and was getting discouraged, but the 2 gods of death began to ask him for help. That one over there, what are you still doing? No, I said this kind of thing that kills a lot of people with one knife. The 2 of you are not enough, and you want my help. Yizan looked at them brightly. It seems to be really exhausting, the look of sweating profusely, and the pale face of exhausted spiritual power. So this is the power of ordinary death god. Really blind. Yizan shook his head and sighed. He began to sing, Kun. A mask of flesh and blood, all phenomena, flying wings, and something in the name of human beings. Burning heat and strife, rolling southward across the sea, before stepping forward. Okay. 31st, red cannon. Boom. The Yuhi-colored fireball exploded violently when it touched Shu, and the 2 gods of death were also affected by the shock wave of the explosion and flew backwards, hitting the wall one by one. Yizan, who never thought that a red cannon thrown at Shu would be able to blow the god of death out. Won't hang up. I don't want someone to call me grandstanding because of this, it's really just an accident after all. I'm still overestimating them. Yizan walked over to them, dumbfounded, and the 2 were struggling to get out of the thatched pile and wooden sticks. Not dead, that's fine. Yizan was relieved, turned around and left. Yizan, how are you? Are you injured? Baitian Liangzi looked at Yizan worriedly. It's alright, isn't this very powerful? I just used the red artillery to clean it up. Yizan smiled proudly, stretched out his hand to take her line from Baishin Ryoko. Let's go, where is your home? It's right in front, it's very close. Baitian Ryoko looked at Yizan with admiration. You are so powerful, you can become a god of death next year. At that time I was still in school in Junyang, maybe you will forget me in the future. No, Yizan took Baishin Ryoko's hand. Ryoko is a very cute girl, I will never forget you if I forget anyone. You're just talking about it. Then, let me prove it to you. Yizan blinked, revealing a soul-stirring smile. Baitian Ryoko already liked him, and this would make her even more dizzy. It was not until Yizan's kiss fell on her lips that she realized that Yizan was holding her whole body in her arms. Ryoko's lips are like jelly. Yizan rubbed her bangs with a wicked smile. Yuhi's face is also very cute. Because of this incident, Baishin Ryoko didn't dare to look up at Yizan until he got home. We're here, this is my home. Baitian Ryoko stopped in front of a house surrounded by wooden fences. Would you like to come in for a cup of tea? Of course, I've already come. Yizan thought for a while, but there was no reason to refuse. Bai Tian Liangzi would be embarrassed, but he didn't want Yizan to go in, who knew he would actually nod his head. She stomped her feet under Yizan's mischievous gaze and pushed open the wooden door. "Isn't my elder sister back?" A fleshy little girl sprang out of that corner and threw herself into Bai Tian Ryoko's arms. "You've been waiting here for me." "Well, the aunt said that my sister will be back in the next 2 days. The little fat girl said with a smile, "Is this my sister's boyfriend?"